The journey begins in the Great Xuan Nation within the Xuanjing Grand Tutor Manor. In the main hall, a woman pours wine into an elaborate cup for an elderly man. The atmosphere is festive as the gathered guests and officers bow, addressing him as the Grand Tutor and offering blessings for his birthday. Throughout the last 50-odd years, he climbed from poverty to reach the rank of Grand Tutor, holding authority that overshadows the entire world, with a life story grand enough to fill a multi-million-word novel. Recalling his past, he remembers how he first transmigrated to this realm as a poor and struggling scholar named Li Fan. But now, he spends his days surrounded by beauty and comfort. For Li Fan, there is truly nothing more a person could ever ask for in life. Suddenly, the celebration is interrupted as a man runs into the hall shouting in panic, claiming that fire is falling from the sky like a divine sign and an auspicious omen heading directly toward the manor. To investigate this bizarre event, Li Fan rushes outside. High above, two figures fly through the air as they descend, with one shouting at the other not to push his luck too far. Seeing those two figures descending from the sky, Li Fan is shocked, realizing they are actual cultivators, while the nearby women and guests drop to their knees, declaring that an immortal master has arrived. Yet Li Fan feels no happiness, overcome instead by a deep sense of dread and confusion. The white-robed cultivator Dao Xuanzi demands that the other cultivator, Ku Hong, surrender the stolen core formation method, warning that fleeing to this land of immortal extinction will only end in his death. Laughing, Ku Hong refuses, explaining that being trapped at the Foundation establishment stage for a century has brought him close to death, and he will never surrender this golden core Dao method. Dao Xuanzi agrees that the road to immortal life is ruthless, but since the path to longevity is right in front of him, he cannot possibly let Ku Hong leave, prompting Ku Hong to sigh at the irony of two brothers of 100 years drawing weapons for survival. Knowing he cannot win today, Ku Hong warns that even if Dao Xuanzi wins, he may not withstand the dense, immortal mortal miasma of this mortal realm, especially with countless mortals dying from their battle. But Dao Xuanzi dismisses the threat as he draws a massive, gleaming blade and charges. In response, Ku Hong releases his own energy in the form of a golden dragon. The impact of their clash sends powerful shockwaves throughout the city. Massive explosions destroy the manor, shaking the world with thunderous force. Li Fan and his family watch in terror as a blinding light consumes everything. After a moment, the Grand Tutor lies buried under heavy rubble, groaning as he struggles to pull himself out of the debris. Searching frantically for his wife and children, he uncovers only their bloody, lifeless bodies lying among the ruins. His grand manor is destroyed, and the once lively Xuanjing has turned into a hell of fire and blood. Nothing remains but broken buildings and mangled corpses as far as the eye can see. Despair sets in with the grim reality that likely not even 1 in 100 people survived this disaster. All of this horrific destruction was caused solely by the sudden appearance of two cultivators. Shaking as he takes a deep breath, he begins to laugh loudly, struck by the unbelievable reality that cultivators actually exist in this world. Ever since the moment he became an official, Li Fan used his power to search for any trace of the immortal path. After becoming the imperial tutor, he searched the entire world for signs. He looked in the frozen sea to the north and the great ocean to the south, scouting the ruinous abyss in the east and the linked mountains in the west. Yet throughout all of Great Xuan, he never found a single bit of evidence that immortals were real. As old age crept in, he eventually gave up on his search. Now seeing those two powerful beings with his own eyes, it feels as though fate is playing with him, leaving him to question whether they were truly immortals and where they could have come from. Performing a hand seal, he calls out the name Huan Zhen as a glowing orb appears, and a system screen announces that charging is complete, asking if he wants to virtualize the current scenario and return to the initial anchor point. Huan Zhen is his unique treasure that turns truth into illusion and reality into virtuality, allowing him to turn his experiences into simulations and return to a set anchor point, specifically, the moment he first transmigrated. This is already his second life since arriving in the Great Xuan Nation, having lived his first life as an ordinary person who, despite having big dreams of becoming the top scholar, failed the imperial exams multiple times. Giving up on becoming an official by the age of 30, he started a business, eventually becoming a wealthy patriarch with a family and a normal life. It was not until he lay on his deathbed in old age that the unique treasure Huan Zhen finally awakened. That sudden awakening led to his unstoppable rise during this current second life, and now that the system is fully charged, it allows him to restart his life at a chosen point. However, he cannot restart just yet with important business still left to finish, so he summons an officer to order the Wu-Wei battalion, stationed outside the city to rush in and restore order. As reconstruction begins, he uses his troops to take control of Xuanjing, staying in the barracks to oversee the cleanup while secretly sending agents to investigate the whereabouts of the two cultivators. 1 month passes as the ruined city begins to show faint signs of life, and several months later, the city gradually comes back to life. After years of waiting, an aide reports that there is still no news of the two cultivators, destroying any hope Li Fan had of finding them, with nothing else left to hold on to in this lifetime. Ready to leave this life behind, he calls out to Huan Zhen once more to activate its power, prompting the system to ask if Li Fan wants to virtualize the scenario and return to the anchor point. He confirms the process as his surroundings begin to transform. His body begins to regress, and memories of his life fly past him. Starring at a memory fragment of those two cultivators, he declares that in 50 years, he will still be waiting for them in Xuanjing, commanding Huan Zhen to restart and return to the first year of the anchor year. The system acknowledges the command as he falls into a swirling vortex, reflecting that riches and honor are nothing but fleeting clouds, and vowing that in his next life he will hunt the immortals. The system notifies Li Fan that he has successfully returned to Anchor Year 1, presenting him with 4 choices. Retain an item from the simulation, keep his cultivation realm, bestow his memories onto a close relative, or forego all options to speed up system charging. Li Fan ponders whether reality has turned into illusion or if the experience was simply too vivid, recognizing that at a certain level, the line between truth and falsehood blurs entirely. Pushing those thoughts aside, he focuses his attention on evaluating the 4 options first. The first and second options are self-explanatory, offering immense help if he ever embarks on the path of cultivation. However, remaining a mere mortal in this life renders them useless, while the third option carries too much uncertainty about how a relative might change after inheriting lifetime memories. Prioritizing absolute stability, he chooses the fourth option as his only logical choice. Since the Huan Zhen capability requires energy to automatically shield him from fatal blows, this protection is precisely what allowed him to survive death multiple times in his past life. Confirming this as the safest route, he commands the system to convert the simulation rewards and accelerate the charging progress. A system notification displays his realm as mortal physical. His age is 20 out of 86, a mental age of 166 out of 1056, and charge progress at 30%, reflecting 3 lives totaling 166 years while his mental age limit expanded past 1,000 years. Carrying too many memories threatens to crush the soul under the erosion of time, yet expanding his mental fortitude gradually raises that upper limit. Stepping onto the path of cultivation will resolve all limitations, making his main goal in this new life to uncover the secrets of cultivation from those two immortals, knowing that prepared action in 50 years gives him a fighting chance against them in Xuanjing. Beyond guns and explosives, utilizing the dense immortal mortal miasma mentioned during their duel could become his ultimate card. Refusing to wait idly for 50 years, Li Fan plans to dispatch agents deep into the ruinous abyss to investigate the origins of the two cultivators. Having no goal is the most frightening existence, reminiscent of his past life when he would wake beside the Empress Dowager in the dead of night, overwhelmed by immense emptiness. Having already reached the absolute zenith of mortal authority, he found that power and pleasure had grown as tasteless as chewing wax. Without a purpose, endless reincarnations might have driven him to end his life, but the sudden appearance of those two cultivators unlocks a brand new horizon. Driven by an unyielding resolve to pursue cultivation and eternal life, he vows to meet Dao Xuanzi and Ku Hong in 50 years. Armed with 2 lifetimes of political mastery, Li Fan breezes through the imperial exams, sweeping first place in the provincial, metropolitan, and palace exams to achieve a legendary triple first that shocks the entire nation. Despite widespread confusion in the imperial court, he requests an official posting to Wen County, using his immense prestige and intimate knowledge of local officials to rapidly bring the county under his absolute control. Promoting trusted allies from his previous life, Li Fan locates a body double for Prince Langya in Anchor Year 4, and by Anchor Year 5 stages a fake refugee raid to massacre the real prince's family and replace Prince Langya with the double. Secretly orchestrating events from the shadows, Li Fan enters the bridal chamber on the night of the fake prince's high-profile wedding in Anchor Year 9, fathering a son with Princess Langya who is born the following year. When the emperor falls terminally ill in Anchor Year 15, Li Fan marches to the capital, secures the throne for his puppet prince, and aggressively installs his own faction to seize total control of the imperial court. By Anchor Year 20, he elevates his biological son to the throne and appoints himself Grand Tutor, stepping directly into the spotlight to drive the rapid development of Great Xuan. In Anchor Year 35, inside the Grand Tutor Manor, Li Fan inquires whether the dense fog over the ruinous abyss dissipates for half a day every 15 years. A cloaked subordinate confirms the phenomenon, reporting that the Immortal Seeking Camp used telescopes during the brief opening to discover a vast, inverted landscape glowing at the bottom of the abyss. Though individual sightings varied, agents observed 10,000 undulating mountains concealing magnificent, ancient structures. Towering cities bustling with over 1 million inhabitants stretched across the plains, alongside a floating sky city wreathed in rosy light and surrounded by exotic flying beasts. Hearing this report, Li Fan asks if those immortals originated from the abyss and whether a path to the bottom has been discovered. The subordinate admits their failure, explaining that terrifying astral winds shred anything that descends past a certain depth, effortlessly tearing through their strongest armor. Recognizing the impossibility of bypassing the barrier for now, Li Fan concludes that he must await the eventual arrival of the two cultivators. In Anchor Year 50, within the great Chuan capital of Chuanjing, the two figures clash in the sky once again. Ku Hong shouts at Dao Xuanzi not to push his luck too far. Suddenly, a relentless barrage of fiery bullets blasts upward into the sky toward them. Caught completely off guard, Ku Hong demands to know who dares launch a sneak attack against an immortal. The soldiers positioned down below continue firing their weapons without end, but Ku Hong stops the incoming barrage with a protective barrier, expressing surprise at the sheer power of the metal projectiles. Using his abilities, he seizes one of the rifles to examine it with care. This weapon proves fascinating, as it is constructed with intricate mechanical structures instead of traditional spell formations. It clearly relies on the explosive power of mortal materials rather than spiritual energy, leaving Ku Hong amazed that mortals exiled to this land of immortal extinction could research such an ingenious object after several thousand years. Yet he cannot help but feel pity, knowing such a weapon is only effective here in a realm where the great Tao is incomplete. Outside the land of immortal extinction, these devices would be nothing more than a pile of useless scrap metal. With a casual flick of his hand, he burns the weapons into ash, his voice turning cold as he remarks on mere mortals daring to make a move against cultivators. For a brief moment, he had felt a hint of guilt, but now dismisses them as fools simply seeking their own death. With that, he invokes his Tao art, Fire Dragon's Roar. Flames burst from his body and twist into dragons that tear through the city. The inferno consumes everything in its path, and within moments the entire city is ablaze. But suddenly his expression shifts into one of shock. Despite his devastating technique, countless mortals somehow remain alive amidst the fire. Standing beside him, Dao Xuanzi quickly explains the situation, pointing out that the hidden weapons were soaked in human blood and tainted by the immortal mortal miasma. Having been ambushed the moment they arrived, and facing the deadly miasma, it is clear the enemy was prepared. Dao Xuanzi warns that this place is bizarre, urging his companion to escape quickly. But before they can depart, a mocking voice echoes through the air, taunting that if the two flee today, the news of them obtaining a core formation method will instantly spread throughout the entire cultivation world. Dao Xuanzi freezes, wondering how the news could have leaked since only the two of them knew about the method, while Ku Hong demands to know who is there. Suddenly, cannon fire erupts from the city below. Enraged, Ku Hong shouts that the attackers are courting death as he unleashes another wave of flames. Dao Xuanzi warns his companion to dodge quickly, but a projectile explodes directly in front of them, painting the sky red with blood. When the smoke clears, the two once mighty cultivators lie defeated on the ground, surrounded by mortal soldiers. An officer steps forward to deliver the Grand Tutor's order, promising that if the two surrender, their lives will be spared, prompting Dao Xuanzi to let out a trembling laugh. As he speaks, a ring floats toward him, turning out to be the storage ring of Ku Hong, who, heavily injured from the blast, tells him to take the ring and go. Moments later, Ku Hong draws his last breath. His golden fire dragon rises one final time, soaring above the burning city before transforming into a withered chi dragon branch. As its form begins to fade away, a solemn voice narrates that the foundation establishment, cultivator Ku Hong, has fallen after cultivating for 205 years. Having achieved his Tao foundation with the mystical object Chi Dragon Branch, he was besieged by thousands and wounded by the immortal mortal miasma, instantly stripping him of his cultivation and bringing his lifespan to its end. Now his body dies and his Tao returns to the heavens. Addressing the sole survivor, one of the standing soldiers tells Dao Xuanzi that the Grand Tutor has no intention of fighting to the death, promising that if he gives up resisting, his life will be guaranteed. From afar, Li Fan watches the scene and takes a deep breath. When Ku Hong died, Li Fan thought he heard a strange voice from the sky, but dismisses it as no longer important. With the dream of capturing an immortal in this life now completely hopeless, it is clear the immortal mortal miasma is far more lethal to cultivators than ever expected. Dao Xuanzi glares ahead, his voice trembling with fury as he claims he does not know who the enemy is or what their purpose might be. Having been plotted against, he mourns the death of his brother and the loss of his Tao. His eyes burn with rage as he refuses to accept this outcome. He condemns the enemy for hiding behind mortals and using a despicable thing like the immortal mortal miasma scorned by all cultivators, believing his brother Ku Hong died in vain. Driven by determination, Dao Xuanzi rises into the air, telling the crowd that they have all seen his brother's foundation establishment mystical object, and now inviting them to look at his own. He channels the wonders of heaven and earth to build his Dao foundation. Declaring that his Dao foundation is named Dao Xuan, he summons a mighty sword descending from the heavens, vast and radiant as it tears through the clouds to invite everyone to witness its power. The colossal blade crashes down, shaking the heavens as shockwaves tear through the city, obliterating everything in the resulting destruction. In the midst of the chaos, Li Fan activates his ability, Truth Returning. A moment later, the system notification appears, announcing that the simulation has ended. Li Fan gasps for breath as the illusion fades and his consciousness returns to reality. Acknowledging Dao Xuanzi as a peak foundation establishment cultivator, he knows that without the immortal mortal miasma, even reincarnating 100 times and using countless schemes would not be enough to pose a threat. The power of the miasma proves far more devastating than expected. Having originally thought their relationship was just a convenient alliance, seeing Ku Hong give the core formation method to Dao Xuanzi before dying reveals their bond was extraordinary. Recalling how Dao Xuanzi was unable to accept the ambush and gave up his chance to live to strike out with a mutual destruction sword art, it becomes clear the two truly shared a friendship beyond the ordinary. However, the Golden Core Dao is ultimately a path one walks alone, where even brothers might turn against one another. Unwavering no matter how dangerous the path ahead is, Li Fan trusts that with the help of Huan Zhen, no predicament can stop him if he is careful. Instead of attacking both at once like last time, he considers winning one of them over. Checking his status, his mental age stands at 216 out of 1080, and his virtualization charge progress is at 30%. Though his mental age only increased by a few dozen years, the cap feels near. Counting his life before transmigrating, this is his 5th life, and he hopes these next 50 years will not be wasted. In Anchor Year 35, at the endless ruinous abyss, Li Fan stands once more at the edge of the chasm. Knowing from his previous simulation that the dense fog over the abyss dissipates once every 15 years, he has come today to see it with his own eyes. After an unknown amount of time, a massive amount of white fog erupts from the abyss, rushing to the sky like a reverse waterfall. The great wind lasts for a quarter of an hour before the heavy fog finally disperses. Li Fan takes out his telescope and looks toward the bottom of the ruinous abyss, remembering that the scene at the bottom is different for everyone who looks. When he peers through the lens, his breath catches in his throat. A vision of a ruined world appears where the mountains bear the words, "The path of immortality is dead." Seeing this, he stands frozen, left to ponder what on earth happened in this place and what happened to the entire cultivation world. But suddenly, his expression shifts into one of shock. At Anchor Year 15 in Xuanjing City, Ku Hong tells Dao Xuanzi that he is going too far. But before they can start fighting, a sudden surge of danger alerts him as bullets tear through the air toward him, accompanied by a harsh voice shouting that by the order of immortal Master Dao Xuanzi, they have been waiting for him. Ku Hong deflects the bullets with a darkening expression, baffled by how Dao Xuanzi could have known he would flee here. Focusing his senses, he detects a familiar corruption within the projectiles, identifying it as traces of the immortal mortal miasma. Ku Hong confronts Dao Xuanzi immediately, calling him a despicable man. Frowning with a tone sharp with confusion, Dao Xuanzi claims the mortals attacking Ku Hong are not under his command, noticing the abnormal miasma and suspecting something is wrong with this place. Before either can speak further, the same mocking voice echoes across the battlefield, accusing Dao Xuanzi of betrayal and shouting that under their agreement, helping him kill Ku Hong and seize the core formation method would secure their clan's escape from this immortal forsaken land. This revelation causes Ku Hong's eyes to flare with rage as he asks if Dao Xuanzi will still deny it, demanding to know who else besides the two of them would know about the core formation method. Dao Xuanzi stands shaken by the unseen speaker's impossible knowledge, while the voice continues coldly, reminding them that they had risked their lives and incurred the wrath of the masses for the sake of the immortal mortal miasma. With public resentment boiling over, the speaker warns that if the immortal master cannot keep his promise, their clan will die without a burial place. Dao Xuanzi unleashes a powerful strike toward the source of the voice, shattering stone and steel. However, the sound persists, emanating this time from a strange metallic box as the speaker asks if the immortal master intends to silence them by death right now. Dao Xuanzi frowns in disbelief, trying to identify what Dharma artifact this is, struck by how surprisingly cautious his hidden opponent is. Suspicious, he unleashes his power once more, obliterating the box with a surge of spiritual energy. Ku Hong's fury erupts as he declares they have known each other for 100 years, unable to believe how greatly he has misjudged his comrade. Knowing Dao Xuanzi wants the core formation method, he questions why he would resort to so many underhanded tricks. Raising his hand to summon a burning dragon of fire, he declares he will not run anymore, challenging Dao Xuanzi to come and take the method if he has the skill before activating the flame dragon's wrath, sending a torrent of roaring flames directly toward Dao Xuanzi. Dao Xuanzi exhales deeply, drawing his dark sword to thrust it forward. A piercing beam of energy shoots into the sky to meet the oncoming dragon as the two forces collide violently, shaking the heavens with a thunderous roar. Amidst the chaos, Li Fan's voice rises with desperation, declaring Dao Xuanzi is fickle and vindictive, warning that if the immortal wins, there will be no escape. To survive, he commands his sons to assist immortal master Ku Hong in dealing with him. Ku Hong watches with grim satisfaction, observing that he who commits many injustices is doomed to self-destruction. He scoffs at Dao Xuanzi, mockingly stating that someone who prided himself on being noble has now broken faith and will suffer a backlash. Hearing this, Dao Xuanzi shouts that Ku Hong is a fool. Ku Hong fires back, calling him a victim of his own cleverness who now stands completely deserted. With a single motion, he channels his power, announcing a newly mastered Dao technique just in time to send him on his way. He activates the Dao technique, imprisoning dragon, as a blazing cage of fire materializes around Dao Xuanzi. With his energy surging like a storm, Dao Xuanzi forces the prison to shatter before him. Breaking free, he instantly ascends into the sky, roaring the name Dao Xuan as he summons his might. From the heavens, a colossal sword descends with a glow that splits the darkened clouds. Ku Hong laughs, raising his staff to see whether Dao Xuan is more formidable or if his Q dragon staff reigns supreme. He activates the Dao technique Dragon Transformation. And as the massive dragon and sword clash in midair, Li Fan's voice echoes, declaring that his forces shall lend immortal master Ku Hong a hand. His men fire cannons that release bursts of crimson smoke, spreading mist across the battlefield. Sensing something unnatural, Dao Xuanzi realizes disaster is imminent as he notices a fatal problem with his Q dragon branch. Alarmed, he watches helplessly as roots tear through his flesh and wrap him in the red mist. A solemn voice announces that the Foundation establishment cultivator Dao Xuanzi, who cultivated for 201 years and established his Dao Foundation with the wondrous item, rusted sword Dao Xuan, has fallen. Having fought in the immortal Forsaken Land, he died at the hands of Ku Hong, his body now perished and his Dao returned to the heavens. Li Fan recognizes the same voice from Ku Hong's death in the previous simulation. Ku Hong gasps for breath as Li Fan approaches him, bowing deeply to introduce himself and implore the immortal master's mercy to save the lives of the 1,000 souls in his clan. Ku Hong responds coldly, demanding to know how a mere mortal dares to interfere in a battle between cultivators. Li Fan explains that he sought only a slim chance of survival, knowing that if the immortal master had defeated them, none would have escaped death. Ku Hong repeats the phrase, quietly acknowledging that the world is harsh and everyone is struggling for survival. Seizing the moment, Li Fan reveals that Dao Xuanzi once promised him a great reward in exchange for victory. Hearing this, Ku Hong scoffs, revealing that for 100 years, Dao Xuanzi appeared to be a man of his word, but in reality acted without principles to deceive mortals. He explains that the great immortal severing formation is incredibly dangerous, requiring immense effort to escape, making it impossible to bring mortals along. Stunned, Li Fan asks if the immortal master himself does not know a way to leave this place. Ku Hong confirms the grim truth, prompting Li Fan to suggest moving to a safer location. Leading the cultivator to an underground shelter, he asks once more if it is true that immortals are unable to take mortals out of this land. Ku Hong answers that Li Fan is but a mere mortal, leaving him with no reason to lie. He explains that while a golden core stage cultivator might protect mortals through the immortal severing formation, for a foundation establishment stage cultivator, it is absolutely impossible. Li Fan asks if this means mortals have no hope of ever leaving this world. Ku Hong confirms that to escape, one must pass through the immortal severing formation, an ordeal impossible for the frail body of a mere mortal. Looking at the aging patriarch, he remarks that Li Fan already has one foot in the grave, questioning why he is so obsessed with leaving when he is already a local emperor. Li Fan asks if it would be possible for his descendants to leave if they cultivated to the Foundation establishment realm like him. Hearing this, Ku Hong laughs, explaining there is no spiritual energy here, making cultivation impossible. He stresses that immortals and mortals are eternally separated, warning that local mortals are covered in miasma and advising Li Fan to give up on the idea. Ku Hong adds that mortals who wish to cultivate must first go to the outside world to reconstruct their bodies and wash away the miasma, warning that otherwise, even if the great Tao were placed right before him, he could see it but never touch it. Li Fan trembles as he asks if there truly is no way. Ku Hong replies that there really isn't, prompting Li Fan to bow and announce his departure as he takes his leave. As Li Fan departs, Ku Hong suddenly senses danger and instantly, red smoke fills the chamber. forcing him to scream in agony while being consumed by the immortal mortal miasma. Standing at the entrance, Li Fan coldly whispers that since immortals and mortals cannot coexist, how could a mortal like him ever fully trust an immortal's words? According to Ku Hong, the place they currently inhabit is known as an immortal forsaken land, its existence stemming from a massive upheaval that occurred thousands of years ago in the ancient cultivation world. In the beginning, no cultivator paid any mind to the strange plague spreading among the mortal population, but everything changed once the first cultivator was infected, causing the plague to strengthen and spread among the other cultivators. The method of transmission was terrifying, because the very spiritual energy they relied on for survival became the carrier, allowing the disease to quickly overtake the entire cultivation world through the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. For those infected, a light case stripped them of their realms, regressing their cultivation bases, while severe cases resulted in losing everything overnight, rendering them no different from ordinary mortals whose bodies would perish as their Tao vanished, returning to the heavens. In their desperation, the cultivators vented their anger on the mortals they believed to be the source of the plague, unleashing a large-scale campaign of slaughter across many lands, until the massacre was eventually halted by force. With the massacre over, the survivors discovered that the plague did not disappear with the death of the mortals. Instead, it seemed to lose all restraints, spreading further along the spiritual energy that permeated heaven and earth, which led to the demise of even more cultivators. Rather than waiting for death, a group of cultivators began to research methods to treat and resist this plague, while others proposed the infamous Great Migration Plan. This plan involved banishing all mortals from the cultivation world to surrounding lesser worlds and shattered grotto heavens devoid of spiritual energy, using permanent spell formations to prevent them from ever returning. Originally, no mortals remained in the cultivation world, but since not all offspring of cultivators had the aptitude for immortal cultivation, over time, many new mortals were born carrying the shadow of the ancient plague deep within their bodies. As this plague had a devastating effect on cultivation, any descendant who wished to cultivate had to first purge it from their bodies, becoming synonymous over time with the barrier between immortals and mortals under the name of the immortal mortal miasma. Li Fan reads from an old record, which states that progenitor mortals established these places of banishment to prevent immortal sex from going astray, identifying these regions as what mortals call the immortal forsaken lands. Reflecting on this revelation, Li Fan wonders how many of these lands exist and how few cultivators would brave the immense risk to enter them, making his encounter with even two of them a stroke of great fortune. As a mortal, he is bound by a limited lifespan, knowing that even if he can continuously simulate lifetimes, he is just repeating them within this temporal cage. Already 70 years old this year, and with a physiological limit of 86, his remaining 16 years make the chance of meeting another cultivator practically zero. Unwilling to simply accept being destined to repeat the life of a mortal over and over again after waiting bitterly for nearly 300 years, he refuses to resign himself to this fate, desperately seeking some other way to escape. Suddenly, a spark of inspiration hits him. Li Fan asks Ku Hong how the mortals in the Great Migration arrived in the immortal forsaken land. The prisoner looks at him wearily, asking if he has truly not given up, reminding him of his 70 years of age and questioning why he still clings to the dream of cultivation. Stepping closer, Li Fan asks if it would be possible for him to resume cultivating if he ever returned to the cultivation world once his base was gone, a question that takes Ku Hong by surprise. Li Fan proposes that if the cultivator can help find a way back, there is a chance he will take him along when the time comes. But the cultivator shouts that Li Fan is a treacherous villain trying to trick him. Li Fan replies that whether it is the truth or a lie, it represents a glimmer of hope, asking if Ku Hong is willing to give up on this path to survival just to grow old and die in this tiny place. Ku Hong sighs deeply, admitting that mortals were likely moved using Dharma artifacts similar to flying arcs or flying shuttles. He explains that in ancient times, the cultivation world was teeming with people and powerful sects where transportation artifacts were highly popular. However, a great cataclysm later befell heaven and earth, forcing cultivators to act alone out of fear and leaving flying arcs and flying shuttles nearly extinct. Li Fan asks if the cataclysm referred to as that bizarre Great Plague. Ku Hong explains that although the immortal mortal miasma was strange, it could not shake the foundation of cultivators, stating that its rapid spread was only possible because most of the world's cultivators had already perished in an even greater calamity. Musing on the rule that there can be only one true golden core Tao, Li Fan considers how although there are many methods, far more cultivators remain permanently stuck in the foundation establishment stage. Li Fan asks if it is true that immortal techniques cannot be cultivated by more than one person. Ku Hong confirms this is correct. He describes an ancient era free of such restrictions, when sects opened their gates wide to teach their arts and disciples enjoyed guidance from masters to aid their practice. They exchanged insights with fellow disciples who used the same methods, keeping the entire cultivation world vibrant. Until one day, the efficiency of their practice dropped drastically, as meditating practitioners felt a connection in their hearts, knowing exactly how many others were cultivating the same technique. This led to the horrifying discovery that the more people practicing the same method simultaneously, the lower the efficiency for everyone, leaving countless cultivators unable to advance their cultivation base by a single inch. As their lifespans drew near, cultivators could no longer hide the killing intent in their hearts, turning masters, apprentices, and brothers of the past into mortal enemies in an instant. A calamity swept across the world, transforming anyone practicing the same method into an obstacle that had to be eliminated in a fight to the death. Even rogue cultivators who tried to hide in deep mountains could not escape, as those practicing the same method could instantly sense each other's locations. Li Fan asks what the cultivation world is like today and how people practice. Ku Hong explains that those who want to cultivate now have no more than a few choices. One is to join the Myriad Immortals Alliance, which is a loose coalition formed by numerous cultivators who exchange contribution points for cultivation methods and resources earned by completing missions or trading with others. The second choice is the Five Elders Council, an organization founded by 5 top-tier mighty figures, where anyone with aptitude can join and obtain a method in exchange for signing a sole contract to serve them. Li Fan asks why it feels like cultivation methods are not scarce from Ku Hong's description. Ku Hong explains that the methods obtained this way are all incomplete, newly compiled over the years by the major powers. However, reaching the peak of qi condensation is already their limit. To advance further and establish a Dao foundation, a cultivator must switch to a new cultivation method, with the same rule applying to realms above foundation establishment. Li Fan asks if switching methods every time he breaks through to a new realm means all previous efforts were for nothing. Ku Hong replies that such a loss will not happen, as everyone who cultivates must practice a fragment of the supreme primordial true scripture, a secret technique rather than a standard cultivation method. Its function is to allow a cultivator to willingly disperse their realm without significant loss, enabling them to switch methods and quickly catch up to their original realm. Li Fan remarks on this miraculous technique, noting how conveniently it appears, as only in this way could the many cultivators of the world be made to accept constantly changing their cultivation methods. The prisoner sighs that a true method is hard to come by, revealing that Dao Xuanzi died without ever knowing Ku Hong ran away because the method he snatched was not just for core formation, but because it was a true method that could lead directly to the nascent soul realm. Li Fan reflects on the nascent soul realm cultivation method in silence, and after Ku Hong provides more common knowledge, such as how a cultivator's demise triggers celestial phenomena, the focus finally returns to the main topic. Ku Hong mentions a rumor about mortals from the immortal Forsaken Lands secretly returning to the cultivation world for thousands of years, though it is mostly idle talk and baseless street rumors without concrete evidence. Li Fan states that there is no smoke without fire, and rumors are sometimes the truth of the matter, declaring that as long as there is a sliver of hope, he will not give up. The prisoner comments on how an old man with one foot in the grave can still be so restless. Li Fan promises that if Ku Hong helps find the way back, he will release him and return all of his and his brother's belongings, including the nascent soul realm cultivation method. Ku Hong asks if he is serious. Li Fan confirms he is, prompting Ku Hong to agree to do his utmost to help. With Ku Hong's assistance, Li Fan collects historical books and records from all over the world, striving to find clues about the Great Migration era from scattered fragments of ancient records. At the same time, he mobilizes the army to excavate ancient tombs on a massive scale to find any trace or clue. Although this causes the people's grievances to boil over and officials to submit daily memorials admonishing him, he forcibly suppresses them all, aware that too much time has passed and his remaining lifespan is far too short. 16 years later, in the underground secret chamber, Li Fan struggles to stand while leaning on his staff. His end is near and he has found nothing. His body is already so frail, like a candle flickering in the wind that could be extinguished at any moment. But before he dies, he resolves to confirm the items within the storage ring. He looks at the scroll for the Thousand Mysteries Jade Cosmos Golden chapter, noticing it is a nascent soul realm cultivation method with 0 cultivators currently using it. Seeing it, Li Fan laments that he is still just a mortal sitting on a mountain of treasures without even divine sense. Turning his attention to the rusted sword Dao Xuan, he recalls Ku Hong's words about wondrous items losing their nature after a cultivator perishes. Suddenly, the sword begins to glow with a blue light, leaving Li Fan staring at it in shock. a notification appears before him, announcing that a rechargeable item has been discovered. The system identifies it as the damaged, rusted sword Dao Xuan, asking if he would like to proceed with the recharge. Li Fan stares at the glowing interface in disbelief, wondering if it truly said recharge. Without any hesitation, he selects yes to proceed. The item's surface flickers with chaotic light as a notification appears, revealing the anchor charge progress at 1% with one anchor point. Recalling feedback from Huan Zhen that a second anchor point will unlock at 100%, Li Fan envisions a future where everything is virtualized, allowing him to restart from any anchored moment. Shaking with excitement, he mutters that if a second point can truly be unlocked, his plans will become far more convenient. Although wondrous items are rare, the cultivation world is boundless, meaning there must be an endless stream of them. As long as he can leave this immortal forsaken land and escape these shackles, everything can begin anew. Checking the storage ring reveals nothing but standard issue spirit stones remaining. Ready to end this life, he activates Truth Returning. The simulation ends and the system offers him 4 options to retain. Li Fan chooses to retain one item. All the treasures from the storage ring float before him, confronting him with the limit that he cannot keep them all at once. Having no choice, he picks the nascent Soul Realm cultivation method. The status screen updates to show his name and mortal realm. His mental age now standing at 282 out of 1109, while the anchor charge progress remains at 1%. A new section for a bound item catches his eye, raising the possibility that this cultivation method will now permanently exist within Truth Returning. A wide grin spreads across his face as he realizes this opens up many more possibilities for his future planning. He reflects on his last life, when his act of ordering large-scale excavations of ancient tombs proved far too shocking, stirring up considerable opposition even with his firm control over the imperial court. If the court had pushed back from the start, his plans would have been unsustainable. However, by starting his planning from this moment, it may well be possible to change the mindset of the entire world in 20 years. Time flows on as his 6th life begins, and with his subtle influence working behind the scenes, many small changes occur in the world. By Anchor Year 5, the Ancient Seeking School emerges out of nowhere, bringing several ancient texts to the capital for an audience with the emperor. The nation is shaken by the exquisite and unparalleled nature of these texts, titled Change, Way and Virtue, Southern Flower, the Analects, and the Great Learning. By Anchor Year 6, the emperor suddenly falls gravely ill and is confined to his bed, leaving all the imperial physicians at their wits' end as they watch his health decline. Just then, the Ancient Seeking School presents an elixir to the emperor at death's door. The ruler consumes the elixir, and to everyone's surprise, it has a miraculous effect, bringing the emperor to a full recovery in just a few days. In Anchor Year 11, the prefecture of Jianghuai uncovers a major tomb robbing case, arresting a team of over 100 robbers. The prefect of Jianghuai, who is Li Fan, does not dare to act on his own authority, sending a memorial to Xuanjing City via the 800 Li Express to request His Majesty's judgment. A full month passes before the emperor's decree finally arrives, sparing the robbers from death to be enslaved and sent to the capital. By Anchor Year 15, the emperor falls gravely ill once again, and wishing to extend his life with an immortal pill, he dispatches over 100,000 troops to excavate ancient tombs everywhere in search of such pills. With the coveted pill impossible to find, the emperor dies with regret, yet the trend of seeking ancient tombs grows even stronger throughout the land. Before his death, the emperor abdicates the throne to the Prince Langya, allowing Li Fan to once again secretly control the world. In Anchor Year 23, a lost piece of history is gradually pieced together following the excavation of an ancient tomb, revealing an ancient dynasty named Qi. Li Fan offers a bounty to the world, declaring that all who find a tomb of the Qi dynasty will be ennobled as a marquis. 2 years later, in Anchor Year 25, the tomb of Yi Exing, the first emperor of the Qi dynasty, is finally found, with a passage to the main burial chamber carved out in just over a month. With all obstacles cleared, Li Fan enters the tomb interior surrounded by his retinue. The main tomb passage stretches for several hundred meters, its walls covered in vivid, lifelike murals that remain clearly visible despite 1,000 years passing. Entering the main burial chamber, they find a massive hall 40 to 50 meters high and several thousand meters wide, beneath a ceiling imitating the layout of the stars, inlaid with tens of thousands of luminous pearls. Mountain peaks rise one after another, submerged in a sea of clouds that remains miraculously fixed within the chamber without drifting or dissipating after several thousand years. Invisible paths connect the various peaks, leaving everyone to marvel in amazement as they walk along, prompting Li Fan to mutter that these are truly the methods of an immortal. Atop the highest peak is a simple thatch hut surrounded by barren fields, which upon closer inspection reveals its thatch is actually woven from countless fine golden threads. Li Fan orders 2 of his men to go open the door, discovering that this hut is actually Yi Exing's coffin. Inside, they find a memorial tablet indicating that it is the tomb of Yi Exing, an outer disciple of the Taihang sect. Although this person joined the Taihang sect, he remained just an outer disciple who never set foot on the path to immortality, ultimately facing exile to this place by the cultivators. Even in death, Yi Exing could not forget his sect, identifying not as an emperor but always as an outer disciple. Yet, with Ku Hong claiming all sects perished in the Great Calamity, Li Fan suspects a hidden story lies behind this. Yi Exing was likely entrusted by the cultivators of the Taihang sect to oversee the Great Migration, raising the question of whether they can find the flying ark used for the crossing. The search of the main burial chamber yields nothing, prompting him to order the ancient seeking camp to excavate the surrounding area until several days later. An agent reports discovering a record mentioning the flying ark in the list of burial goods. However, the report adds that the chamber was robbed long ago, with signs of damage indicating the theft occurred over 1,000 years ago. Li Fan's expression darkens as the crushing truth of another dead end sinks in. He screams in rage while smashing a desk, scattering books everywhere. He laments that every time a glimmer of hope appears, it ends up being unattainable, like flowers in a mirror or the moon in the water. Panting heavily while a subordinate kneels before him, he tries to collect himself. Li Fan issues a new reward to the world, promising that whoever finds clues related to the immortal ark will be ennobled as a marquis of 1,000 households. By anchor year 35, an agent reports that a few days ago, a group of people excavating an unremarkable grave were suddenly injured by a mysterious force, suffering heavy casualties and prompting the ancient seeking camp to dispatch veterans, though even they could not disturb the small tomb in the slightest. Li Fan's eyes glow with excitement as he orders them to bring the immortal mortal miasma and open the tomb at once. The soldiers pour buckets of the dark miasma onto the invisible barrier, causing it to crack and dissipate. Li Fan orders his troops to be careful during the excavation and to report immediately if they find anything resembling a flying ark. A moment later, a scout reports the discovery of an object resembling a flying ark among the burial goods. Li Fan rushes into the dark tomb to see for himself, but the sight shocks him deeply, prompting him to stare at a small vessel and ask in a trembling voice if this is a flying ark. The small wooden boat is indeed the flying ark that Li Fan has been longing for, and through a message carved on the tomb wall by its owner before his death, he finally understands the full story. It turns out the tomb owner was named Qian Hong, a Foundation establishment stage cultivator who, over 3,000 years ago, fled here to hide from his pursuers inside the immortal Forsaken Land. With this place completely devoid of spiritual energy and possessing few spirit stones, his scant resources were quickly depleted, causing his cultivation base to deteriorate day by day without spiritual energy to replenish it. Driven by the speculation that the mortals exiled here thousands of years ago might have left behind one or two flying arks, Qian Hong investigated far and wide, spending decades before finally finding the tomb of Yi Exing. There was indeed a flying ark in the tomb, but to his despair the core power spell formation inside was already damaged, and lacking knowledge and artifact refinement, he could not repair it, finally forcing him to abandon all hope of escaping this immortal Forsaken Land. His final words offer future visitors a choice of one of the 4 items left from the cultivation world in exchange for sweeping his grave. Given the protection of the spell formation outside, it is natural that Qian Hong was certain a cultivator would be the one to arrive to claim them. Looking over the items, Li Fan watches the system identify a wondrous item of heaven and earth called the halting steel fragment, confirming its immense value. This is the item that has been guarding the tomb all this time, but with truth returning failing to react, it is clear the massive amount of immortal mortal miasma used to breach the tomb has ruined its nature, turning it into an ordinary stone. Sighing, Li Fan examines the second item, finding a chi condensation stage method called lesser truth returning vastness, and a foundation establishment stage method called cloud water record. But he is shocked to discover that someone is already cultivating these methods, raising immediate suspicions of a trap. Since more than 3,000 years have passed, forget a foundation establishment cultivator, even a golden core cultivator would have turned to dust by now, leaving Li Fan to wonder why someone is actively cultivating them. Perhaps the methods have a master copy. With many cultivation methods compiled by major powers like the Myriad Immortals Alliance and the 5 Elders Council after the Great Cataclysm, the management likely recycles abandoned techniques for others to redeem, meaning over the past 3,000 years, these 2 methods have likely changed hands countless times. He drops the scrolls in frustration, appalled by how corrupt everything is. Still, the Taihang Ark has now fallen into his grasp after changing hands for thousands of years. A dark grin spreads across Li Fan's face, his wish finally granted after hundreds of years of waiting. Though the Taehang arc is damaged, there is no cause for concern. Kai and Hong could not fix it and Li Fan cannot either, but there is someone who can. Anchor Year 50 begins and the familiar battle plays out, with Ku Hong shouting at Dao Xuanzi not to push him too far. Li Fan's voice interrupts them, asking if a mere core formation method is really worth fighting to the death. Ku Hong demands to know who is there, denouncing such arrogance, while Dao Xuanzi calls the speaker insolent. Li Fan steps into view, inviting them both to come down for a chat. As the two cultivators sit before him, Li Fan laughs and invites them to have a drink. He explains that his ancestor's deathbed prophecy foretold two people coming from the east of the abyssal ruins to set foot in the capital, securing their clan's opportunity to escape. Though his clansmen have been skeptical for thousands of years, Li Fan declares the prophecy fulfilled today, calling for a grand toast. Ku Hong asks for his name. He replies that his name is Li Fan. Dao Xuanzi asks if his ancestor really foresaw their arrival thousands of years ago, and what Li Fan means by an opportunity to escape this place. Li Fan stares at them, asking if they truly do not believe him. Ku Hong finds this matter too fantastical, stating that in his 100 years of roaming the cultivation world, he has never heard of any art of deduction that can predict events 1,000 years in the future. Li Fan asks if they have ever heard of the Taehang sect. Hearing that, Ku Hong reacts with shock, asking if it is the sect from ancient times renowned for its art of deduction. Li Fan tells them to relax, confirming his ancestor was indeed a member of the Taehang sect. He explains that although his ancestor joined the sect, he disliked cultivation and was instead obsessed with the arts of deduction and calculation, an obsession cut short by the Great Cataclysm, when all mortals were to be migrated. With an early chi condensation stage cultivation base, no one would have forced the ancestor to migrate, but seeing the panic among his family, he volunteered to take charge of the mortal migration, remaining here with them ever since. Dao Xuanzi nods in understanding but questions why Li Fan stopped them. Li Fan explains that as no cultivator has set foot here for thousands of years, their arrival marks them as the prophesied keys to his clan's escape, compelling him to stop their duel to the death over a mere core formation method. Dao Xuanzi sighs, admitting they must find them laughable, explaining that core formation methods are so hard to come by in the outside world that turning on each other for a single scroll is entirely normal. Li Fan sighs, asking if it must come to this. He declares that before his son passed away, he handed down a cultivation method that leads directly to the Golden Core realm. An excited Ku Hong calls the offer excellent, nodding that obtaining this method ends their need to fight, while Dao Xuanzi asks what Li Fan seeks in return. He replies that his ancestor's lifelong wish was to return to the Taehang sect, and before his death, he also passed down a Dharma artifact called the Taehang Arc. Although it is damaged, calculations prophesied that one skilled in sword techniques and one devoted to artifact refinement would arrive to help his descendants repair the vessel and escape this forsaken land. Dao Xuanzi calls the calculations spot on, acknowledging Ku Hong's devotion to artifact refinement and his own specialty in sword techniques, marveling at the incredible art of Taehang. Ku Hong finds it hard to imagine such unfathomable power from only a chi condensation stage cultivation base. Li Fan tells them talk is cheap, inviting them to look at the method first. But as both of them start to stand up, Dao Xuanzi asks if Ku Hong is still not satisfied after already obtaining one core formation method. With an awkward expression, Ku Hong agrees not to go over. Li Fan leads Dao Xuanzi into the passage. As they reach that location and the doors of the cave open, Dao Xuanzi stops, surprised to see the immortal mortal miasma. Li Fan explains that mortals can't be too careful, and to protect their family's greatest treasure, they have no other choice. He goes inside and takes out the scroll, asking the fellow Taoist to look at the cultivation method left by his ancestor. Li Fan presents the Thousand Mysteries Jade Cosmos Golden chapter, which is a nascent soul realm method. Dao Xuanzi is shocked to see it is actually a nascent soul realm method. Everything unfolds exactly as Li Fan predicted. He asks if Dao Xuanzi believes him now, explaining that earlier in front of Ku Hong, he only said his ancestor passed down a core formation method out of fear of malicious thoughts. Dao Xuanzi salutes him, praising his sharp mind, and assures Li Fan that his brother Ku Hong is an expert in artifact refinement, who will definitely help repair the Taehang Arc with all his might. Li Fan laughs, stating that he will be counting on him and promising that once it is done, he will present the method with both hands. After returning to the hall, Ku Hong asks if Li Fan's words were true and if he really possesses an ancestral core formation method. Dao Xuanzi confirms this, saying he saw it with his own eyes. Ku Hong's expression becomes dark and greedy, declaring that Li Fan is just a mere mortal and he will simply take the method by force. Ku Hong suggests taking the method by force since Li Fan is a mere mortal, but Dao Xuanzi stops him, pointing out that although Li Fan is immortal, he is a descendant of the Taehang sect with a fearsome art of deduction. warning that if they take it by force, there is no telling what other tricks the man might have up his sleeve. Dao Xuanzi adds that repairing the Taihang arc is simple enough, so they should not stir up more trouble, knowing that if they push a desperate Li Fan to reveal that his cultivation method is actually a nascent soul realm method, the consequences would be disastrous. The next day, Li Fan hands the Taihang arc over to them. Astonished by the ingenuity of the Taihang sect's refinement and the profundity of its spell formations, Ku Hong believes repairing it will surely advance his own Dao of artifact refinement, prompting Li Fan to leave the work in their hands. As cultivation takes no account of years, what once looked like a simple wooden boat takes Ku Hong and his partner nearly a full year to repair. Upon hearing the Taihang arc is repaired, Li Fan hurriedly goes to find the two cultivators. Ku Hong explains that the core power, size-changing spell formation, and dust-cleansing spell formation are fully operational, leaving only the defensive and offensive spell formations with basic repairs due to a lack of rare materials. Ku Hong states that breaking through the Great Immortal Severing Formation should not be a problem, though dealing with a cultivator's attack remains a stretch, prompting Li Fan to declare that returning to the cultivation world is all that matters. Armed with his ancestors' keepsake, he is confident he will find a way back to the Taihang sect. Ku Hong explains that this Taihang arc is powered by spiritual energy and controlled with divine sense, capable of transforming between three levels of size: 10 meters, 100 meters, and 1,000 meters. Though their spirit stones are low, the energy reserves inside are enough for him to escape this place in its second, 100-meter form. However, piloting the Taihang arc requires divine sense of at least the chi condensation stage, prompting Ku Hong to ask if he needs to pilot it for him. To their surprise, Li Fan easily controls the Taihang arc despite being immortal. Ku Hong praises him, calling his methods truly extraordinary for managing such a feat as a mortal. Li Fan laughs and asks them to stop, calling it a minor trick not worth mentioning, before thanking them both, as after being trapped for 1,000 years, hope of escape has finally arrived. Dao Xuanzi asks about the cultivation method, which Li Fan reveals is already prepared, inviting the fellow Taoist to retrieve it. 3 days later, Ku Hong and Dao Xuanzi, having obtained the method, come to bid him farewell, explaining that their spirit stones are nearly gone, and staying in this immortal forsaken land any longer risks their cultivation bases declining. Ku Hong tells Li Fan that upon escaping, he can find him in Lingshan City within the Kanjian mountain range. He presents a map of the area near the exit of the Great Immortal Severing Formation, which he drew from memory. Ku Hong explains there are no blank jade slips here, forcing him to use paper and a brush, prompting Li Fan to thank the fellow Taoist. After some more pleasantries, Ku Hong and Dao Xuanzi finally transform into two streaks of light and depart. While flying, Ku Hong marvels at Li Fan's remarkable mentality and character, pitying that his end is approaching. Even if he reaches the cultivation world, he has only a few years left to live. Dao Xuanzi sighs that without achieving longevity, all else is illusion, recalling how they nearly turned against each other precisely for a chance at eternal life. Speaking of which, Ku Hong asks what cultivation method Li Fan gave him. With a smile, Dao Xuanzi tells him not to worry, promising it is not the same method, declaring that once he enters closed-door cultivation and breaks through to the golden core stage, he will fulfill the 3 things he promised Ku Hong. Dao Xuanzi then asks if his brother dares to venture through the protective formation mist which has not yet dispersed. Ku Hong laughs, demanding what there is to fear as he dives into the eastern abyssal ruins. Meanwhile, Li Fan stands in the Taihang arc cockpit and looks at the fog. There are still 14 years until the white fog disperses again, but already 71 years old, Li Fan knows that by age 85, his great limit will prevent him from piloting the Taihang arc. Realizing he has nothing left to cling to in this life, he resolves to test the reality of this great immortal severing formation. With that, his journey begins. The abyssal ruins are shrouded in dense fog, creating a vast expanse of white that gives him a sense of extreme unreality. Suddenly, the hull of the Taihang arc begins to shake violently as if it has hit something. Fearing the astral wind layer described by Ku Hong, Li Fan knows the wind blades here can easily tear a mortal's body apart without spiritual energy. Praising the defensive spell formation, he is spared from unimaginable consequences. After half an hour of effort, he finally passes through the astral wind layer. The vibrations finally subside, replaced by an infinite light ahead. Successfully escaping the great, immortal severing formation, he enters the cultivation world, chancing upon a rare cultivation method and forming his golden core in just a mere 100 years. His path thereafter is smooth sailing, leading him to attain the Tao and ascend 1,000 years later. Upon reaching the immortal realm, he starts again as a lowly official, steadily rising to become the most powerful existence over the entire immortal realm, before shattering the spatial barrier to ascend to the god realm. Starting as a miner, he spends 10,000 years cultivating to the god-king realm, to become the most powerful existence in the God realm. Afterward, he goes through countless hardships to ascend to the primeval God realm as a low-level gatekeeper, painstakingly starting over from scratch. Li Fan suddenly snaps awake, realizing that everything was just an illusion from the illusory light layer as the arc turns around. According to the map, he has already left the illusory light layer and arrived at the third layer of the immortal Forsaken continent, the inversion layer. Waking up just now is a result of the Taehang arc automatically navigating out of the illusory light layer. Despite his lost consciousness, the arc successfully traveled to the inversion layer on its own, allowing him to let the vessel steer while he simply provides the power to accelerate. An intuition from the Taehang arc guides him, and following the path, he accelerates forward. As expected, he smoothly arrives at the fourth layer, the flowing fire layer. The Taehang arc's original purpose of migrating mortals 1,000 years ago means the cultivator in charge must have left a backdoor, allowing it to automatically pass through the continent. Having gotten a taste of success, he stops trying to control it deliberately and lets the Taehang arc fly through the continent on its own. He passes the fifth layer, the profound ice layer, and the sixth layer, the thunderstorm layer, places that seem exceptionally perilous, though the Taehang arc always manages to narrowly avoid one devastating crisis after another. Just like that, he smoothly arrives at the final layer, the darkness layer. According to Ku Hong, this layer isn't particularly dangerous, just a patch of darkness. Li Fan is excited that once he passes through here, the cultivation world lies ahead after 6 lifetimes of reincarnation. Suddenly, a giant mouth as vast as a mountain emerges and opens wide to swallow him. Li Fan quickly calls for truth returning, and the simulation ends. He gasps for breath, struggling to comprehend what on earth that thing was, noting that when the duo passed through the formation, they did not encounter that monster. Suspecting a defense mechanism that only targets mortals, Li Fan determines the safest plan is still to wait for the dense fog to clear and for light to appear at the bottom before exploring. Although he failed at the last moment, the gains from this life were far beyond expectations, with his status window showing a mental age of 333, and both the Thousand Mysteries Jade Cosmos Golden Chapter and Taehang Arc as bound items. Choosing to retain the Taehang Arc, his 7th life immediately begins. In Anchor Year 4, he leads his trusted subordinates to Kyan Hong's tomb in secret, using a spray containing immortal mortal miasma to slowly corrode the seal until the power of the halting steel fragment is weakened to the point where it cannot pierce his armor. Upon entering and touching the stone, the system identifies it as the damaged, halting steel fragment and asks if he wants to recharge it. Li Fan quickly says yes, and the system notifies him that the anchor charge progress is now at 26%. Though disappointed by the damage, the 25% increase means doing this just 3 more times will unlock the second anchor point. With the remaining items of no value, he orders his men to reseal the tomb and leaves the burial site. In Anchor Year 5, he still cannot resist and comes to the eastern abyssal ruins. He tells himself he will just take a look and won't go down. He watches as the fog begins to disperse. At this very moment, he wonders if he pilots the Taehang Arc, it could likely carry him smoothly all the way to the immortal realm. He asks himself if he must truly wait another 15 years. How can he achieve the Great Tao if he is this timid, even if truth returning is not fully charged? Having already tested it once in his last life, as long as he is careful to avoid the unknown monster in the darkness layer, he can leave this damned place. Li Fan calculates that as long as he can avoid the unknown monster in the darkness layer, he will be able to leave this god-forsaken place. Just as the thought crosses his mind, a bright golden light bursts from deep within the abyss. As the fog clears, he sees the words, "The path of immortality is dead," written on the abyss once more. His breathing grows unsteady under the sudden pressure. Moments earlier, countless voices in his head were luring him into the abyssal ruins, and if not for the light from the bottom piercing through the great immortal severing formation, he would have been smashed to pieces. 15 years later, in Anchor Year 20, the truth returning ability finally finishes charging. Armed with newfound confidence, Li Fan returns to the abyssal ruins, piloting the Taehang Arc to reach the thunderstorm layer without incident. Halting above the darkness layer as a strong wind begins to blow and the frenzied thunderstorm weakens, he watches as specks of light emerge from the darkness, using this precious light to search for the monster lurking in the dark. Unfortunately, his search yields nothing. With the light rapidly fading, he no longer hesitates and pilots the Taehang Arc at full speed toward the bottom of the abyssal ruins. Suddenly, he finds himself flying straight into the creature's gaping mouth. Confirming his worst fears, this monster clearly holds great malice toward mortals, with the sole mission of devouring any human who comes near this place. Li Fan immediately flees as the creature pursues him relentlessly. Only when he reaches the thunderstorm layer does the beast halt its chase, remaining at the edge of the darkness layer. Straining his eyes, he uses the light from the thunderstorm layer to discern the beast's true form. Looking at the massive creature, he gasps, asking what the hell that thing is. This giant whale is incredibly enormous while the Taehang Arc is so small, yet every time he passes through, it instantly locates him. With plenty of chances left, he resolves to try different methods. Over the next 15 years, he tries to force his way through the darkness layer countless times, but with each attempt, the giant whale locates him even faster. Each encounter ends in a swift defeat, forcing him to retreat after a brief struggle with the giant whale. By anchor year 35, while waiting in the thunderstorm layer, only on the day the white mist recedes does the giant whale's detection seem to be delayed, spotting him only after a while. This extra bit of time offers a chance to fly to the bottom of the abyssal ruins. Determined to succeed, he goes all out to charge straight through at maximum speed, aiming to cross the darkness layer before the giant whale can react. An illusory scene appears below, drawing closer by the second. But the giant whale's terrifying cry rings out once again. Knowing it is too late, he quickly activates Truth Returning. After the simulation ends, he opts to forego selection to accelerate the charging progress. The upper limit of his mental age did not increase, indicating he has already reached his limit. Li Fan sighs, comforted by the fact that he still has 748 years to squander. In his 8th life, during anchor year 4, he opens Qian Hong's tomb again. Fortunately, this lifetime is not a complete waste, as the anchor charge progress rises to 51%. On the day the white mist recedes in anchor year 5, the void transformation charge progress is already close to 90%. However, since anything less than 100% makes no real difference, he waits patiently. In anchor year 20, he tries and fails. In anchor year 35, he tries and fails again. Li Fan shouts for the ship to turn as the whale chases him. Yet these attempts are not completely useless, as his control over the Taehang Arc grows increasingly skilled. By anchor year 50, he decides against forcing his way through the darkness layer again. Now advanced in age, his reflexes and mental acuity have declined sharply, leaving him with no hope of a brute force breakthrough. Accepting this grim reality, he shifts his focus and goes to meet 2 old friends to see if he can gather any clues from them. Hearing the familiar shout, "Dao Xuanzi, don't you push me too far," sends a wave of nostalgia through him. As before, he uses the pretext of a core formation method to lure the two to the Grand Tudor Manor. After 3 rounds of drinks, Li Fan takes out a scroll featuring a painting of the giant whale. He tells them of a deathbed warning from his ancestor, claiming that with the protection of their sect's Taehang Arc, he should be safe. This warning specifically highlighted the final layer, where a giant whale lurks, requiring the utmost caution. Ku Hong is startled, asking how there could be such a ferocious beast in that pitch-black place when he personally did not see it. Dao Xuanzi mutters, "Could it be?" prompting Li Fan to ask if his fellow Taoist knows something about this beast. Xuanzi replies that he has only seen records of it in an ancient text, explaining that in ancient times there was a clan named the Beast-Tamming Sect. They possessed no profound cultivation methods and relied solely on their beast-tamming art to control exotic beasts of heaven and earth to fight for them. And this giant whale seems to be one of their most famous creatures. Ku Hong remembers it as well, calling it a rift-splitting whale. Li Fan asks if either of them knows how to avoid this rift-splitting whale. Dao Xuanzi admits he has only heard fragments about it, while Ku Hong adds that such an exotic beast disappeared from the cultivation world thousands of years ago, making it impossible for them to know its habits. Li Fan sighs, knowing that in the end he still has to rely on himself. After handing the cultivation method to Dao Xuanzi and sending the two away, he chooses to end this lifetime. In his 9th life, during anchor year 4, he opens Qian Hong's tomb again, hoping to absorb the halting steel fragment to charge up. Unfortunately, Truth Returning has no reaction. In anchor years 20, 35, and 50, he tries repeatedly but cannot break through the darkness layer. By anchor year 65, he is already 85 years old, with his life nearing its end. Too old to outwit or outfight the giant whale, he decides to completely give up control of the Taehang Arc, letting it slowly drift toward the bottom from the start. The vessel passes through the astral wind layer, illusory light layer, inversion layer, and flowing fire layer. It continues through the profound ice layer, the thunderstorm layer, and the darkness layer. Li Fan asks what is happening, puzzled as to why the rift-splitting whale did not appear this time, when he is almost at the very bottom of the abyssal ruins. Determined not to miss this chance, he takes control and accelerates to full speed. Instantly, the rift-splitting whale appears from behind and starts chasing him. Li Fan struggles to understand how it suddenly discovered him now before grasping the truth. The rift-splitting whale ignores objects moving at a constant velocity. As long as he maintains the same speed, he can pass through this great, immortal severing formation safely. Li Fan laughs loudly, shouting that he has completely broken the last shackle keeping him in this immortal forsaken land. Amidst his wild laughter and the giant whale's roar, the Taehang Arc breaks through the rift between the two realms, heading straight for the cultivation world. His surroundings blur as if he has instantly crossed the distance of several worlds. Under immense pressure, blood streams from his nose and eyes, yet he pays it no mind. As he looks back at the great, immortal severing formation, his perspective is now infinitely elevated. But at that moment, he witnesses a sight he will never forget. He sees the colossal rift-splitting whales full form for the first time, and it is not alone, there are hundreds of them. He sees thousands upon thousands of these rift-splitting whales, carving out patches of dark space from the void. Meanwhile, the immortal forsaken land he came from grows ever more distant from the perspective of the cultivation world. Li Fan guides the Taehang Arc as it finally crosses to the opposite side at full speed. As the vessel soars above endless mountain ranges and seas of clouds, he spots several buildings situated at the top of a distant peak. A faint smile crosses his lips upon realizing he has truly reached the cultivation world. Beholding the cultivation world before dying ensures this life was not lived in vain, prompting him to call upon Huan Zhen to activate Truth Returning. The system announces that the simulation has ended. 9 lives and nearly 500 years have finally allowed him to touch the threshold of cultivation. According to his previous plan, he intended to choose the option to speed up the charging progress, but after seeing the list of selectable items, he hesitates, shocked to see the halting steel fragment among the choices. After some thought, he opts to retain the steel fragment, realizing this is the perfect opportunity to verify a certain suspicion. And so, his 10th life begins. Since he did not choose to accelerate charging, he needs to wait 20 years for it to complete. At Anchor Year 3, he arrives outside Qian Hong's tomb, but choosing not to use the immortal mortal miasma to break in, he instead directly takes out the halting steel fragment from Truth Returning. As he brings this steel fragment forward from his previous life, a strange and wondrous change occurs. The object begins to slowly dissipate like an ice block under the scorching sun, while the formation generated by the halting steel fragment inside Qian Hong's tomb clearly grows much stronger. Confirming that mystical objects of heaven and earth possess uniqueness, he knows 2 identical mystical objects should not exist in the world. Yet having created an identical one from thin air with the power of Truth Returning, the consequence is that the 2 spontaneously merge and ultimately become one. Afterward, he orders his subordinates to use the immortal mortal miasma spray to break into the tomb, requiring considerable effort to slowly wear down its power. Entering Qian Hong's tomb, he finds the appearance of the halting steel fragment has not changed much, as it just looks slightly less damaged. Li Fan realizes Truth Returning still cannot absorb it, indicating the steel needs to be repaired more completely before it yields new energy. He then stores this strengthened, halting steel fragment in the Taehang Arc as part of his assets for the future journey to the cultivation world. As Anchor Year 20 approaches, Truth Returning nears its full charge, prompting him to ruthlessly investigate and purge a batch of corrupt officials and powerful landlords. Confiscating all the gold, silver, and jewels their families had accumulated over generations. He does this because he will still have to deal with mortals after reaching the cultivation world, making it necessary to prepare gold and silver in advance. Besides money, food is also essential. However, as grain is the foundation of the nation, his massive demand draws fierce opposition from court officials who submit memorials against him. Li Fan does not waste words. Summoning the Taehang Arc in front of all civil and military officials, he expands it to its maximum size, leaving it hovering above the imperial palace. Witnessing this majestic display, the common people kneel and kowtow, while the civil and military officials, shaken by such immortal methods, instantly change their attitudes, proactively helping him prepare the grain. With the officials' proactive help and the execution of a batch of profiteering merchants, the Taehang Arc is finally filled to the brim. With everything prepared and no more ties to the mortal world, he pilots the Taehang Arc once again to the abyssal ruins, relaxing his mind to let the vessel autopilot at a constant speed. Though the journey takes only a few hours, it feels even longer than the hundreds of years he had experienced before, as he gradually adapts to the sharp tearing sensation of crossing between 2 realms. After a long wait, he finally passes through the immortal extinction Great Formation and arrives in the cultivation world, only to stand dumbfounded upon getting a clear look at his surroundings. He questions what is happening, unable to comprehend why the place he emerged from is different this time. Checking the map Ku Hong drew, he fails to find any location with a sea, leaving him to take things one step at a time, seeking an inhabited place before the spirit stones in the Taehang Arc run out. Choosing a direction, he pilots the Taehang Arc, flying while searching for any traces of a city across the truly vast and boundless ocean, navigating for 7 days and 7 nights without seeing any sign of human life. After another 10+ days, the Taehang Arc's speed grows slower and slower as it nears the end of its power, when suddenly the faint shadow of a ship finally appears on the sea in the distance. Looking at the ship with his telescope, he is left completely speechless. The vessel is on the verge of sinking from an apparent attack, with a large hole in the hull and two-thirds of its structure already submerged, leaving dozens of crew members and passengers struggling in the water. One man tells everyone not to be afraid because he has already sent a signal to the immortal master, claiming the master will be here to save them soon, and asking everyone to hold on a little longer. Li Fan becomes alert upon hearing the mention of an immortal master. With his heart skipping a beat, he puts away the Taehang arc and jumps into the sea, quietly swimming toward the struggling survivors. Silently blending into the crowd, he pretends to be on his last breath, barely struggling to survive as he shouts for the immortal master to save him. Suddenly, a voice tells them they are noisy as a figure appears in the sky. Hearing the voice, Li Fan recognizes it as male, observing that the figure seems to have used some magic art to obscure his face and clothes as if behind a veil, making it impossible to see him clearly. The moment the figure appears, the surroundings instantly fall silent, and Li Fan finds himself unable to make a sound. With a casual point of his finger, the immortal master lifts the ship, which was already mostly submerged, out of the water, repairing the large hole in the hull in an instant. The immortal master swings his hand and sets everyone back on the ship. He asks who sent him the signal. The man from before identifies himself as Su Changyu. The figure asks him if he understands the rules, stating that once they get there, they will have nothing to do with each other, and declaring he has never seen him before. Su Changyu bows, saying he understands. The figure makes a sound of acknowledgement. Using a magic art unknown to Li Fan, the ship begins to move quickly in a certain direction. The immortal master stands at the bow without saying a word, leaving everyone on the ship to fall into an eerie silence. Half a day passes like this. After nightfall, a faint, flickering light is finally visible in the distance, revealing a prosperous island where hundreds of large ships are moored at the docks. However, the ship he is on does not head toward the docks. Instead, it circles halfway around the island, arriving at a less populated area on the other side, where it quietly follows a waterway into a natural karst cave. After traveling through the narrow cave for a while, the ship finally comes to a steady halt, and several burly men in black come aboard to meet them. Ignoring the immortal master entirely, the men in black simply herd everyone off the ship. Leading everyone into a spacious hall, the black-clothed men explain they will rest there tonight with plenty of food, and that someone will take them to get their identities registered tomorrow, before turning to leave. One man laments what rotten luck it was to run into a sea monster, noting that out of nearly 100 who set out, less than half survive. Another man sighs, saying he doesn't know what his father was thinking by insisting on sending him to this great world to cultivate, claiming cultivation is not as fun as listening to music. The first man adds that back in his homeland, he was the son of the Prince of Zhenin with riches and glory to enjoy, asking what is so good about this blasted place. Su Changyu approaches them, asking what the point of saying this now is since their families paid a huge price to send them there. He advises them that instead of complaining, they might as well cultivate patiently. By truly becoming an immortal master, they will not only gain hope for long life, but also a chance to return to their homeland and bring their families out too. Listening to their conversation from a distance, Li Fan realizes these people are probably just like him, mortals exiled from the immortal Forsaken Land. However, it seems that in the immortal Forsaken Land they came from, the existence of the cultivation world is clearly no secret, having already developed a mature smuggling route. Just as he is deep in thought, a man taps his shoulder and remarks that he looks a bit unfamiliar, asking Li Fan what official post he held in Dali, or if he is a wealthy merchant from another state. Li Fan pauses briefly before forcefully striking the man's hand away, instantly startling him. He stares at him with an expression so freezing that the plump man immediately retreats, muttering a hasty farewell as he departs. While walking off, the man whispers to himself that the interaction nearly scared him to death, sensing that the old man appears to have occupied a high-ranking position for years and is definitely not a simple character. At dawn the following day, someone arrives to inform the group that they will soon be escorted to finalize their household registrations, explaining that once they are registered, they will officially become members of Liulai Island. The man warns the group not to speak of things they should not, stating he cannot guarantee their safety otherwise. He tells them to keep their fake identities in mind, reminding them they are all refugees from western Dayu Island whose home was wiped out by a violent windstorm. Following the middle-aged man's instruction, they all change into tattered clothing. Guided by him and guarded by 5 men dressed in black, they follow a hidden passage out of the karst cave to reach the surface. The group consists of several dozen people, but the island's residents only give them brief glances before moving on, having grown completely accustomed to seeing refugees. After winding through the residential area for a long time, the group finally arrives before a manor, waiting only a moment after the young servant at the gate goes in to announce them, before he returns to lead them through a side door and into a large hall. 2 or 3 other groups are already gathered there, totaling over 100 people. When their turn arrives, their guide Sun Jiang introduces them to the official steward Zhao. That old man looks over the crowd, asking if all these refugees are here to be registered. His eyes suddenly glow as he asks if these refugees are all either rich or noble. Sun Jiang smiles and confirms that they were indeed wealthy families on Dayu Island. Subtly placing an item into the old man's hand, he explains that disaster struck after they lost the protection of an immortal master, claiming all their wealth and status vanished like a bubble, leaving them to travel thousands of miles for refuge on Liulai Island. The old man accepts the bribe, mentioning that the windstorm lasted for days and even affected Liulai Island. Agreeing with the claim, he says the western islands indeed suffered much worse, with over 200 islands reportedly razed and countless mortals dying at sea. He tells them that the immortal masters were merciful and ordered the rescue of the refugees, adding that Heavenly Treasure Tower is very dedicated, promising Sun Jiang that he will report this truthfully to the island lord, and once the immortal master's rewards are handed down, Sun Jiang will surely get his share. After that, Steward Zhao begins the registration process for everyone, and soon it is Li Fan's turn. The two of them look at each other for a moment, before the old man asks Li Fan for his name, prompting Li Fan to reply. Producing a talisman, the official instructs him to place a drop of blood on it. Li Fan bites his finger and presses the blood onto the surface, where Steward Zhao tells him to keep this spirit talisman safe as it is now his proof of identity, explaining that Li Fan must present it for everything on the island, including work, grain collection, and inspections. He warns him not to lose it. Standing next to him, Sun Jiang is left puzzled as to why Steward Zhao is being so polite to Li Fan and explaining things so thoroughly. The household registrations are completed efficiently, and their entire group receives their Liulai Island registrations. They leave the manor but do not return to the cave. Instead, Sun Jiang leads them into a residential courtyard. He tells them they can now sign the contract with their registrations in hand. Su Changyu pulls a paper from his clothes, bites his finger, and writes his name in blood. Once finished, the paper dissolves as the second step of the 3 contracts to finalize, leaving Sun Jiang to mention that once they are settled, the final contract will be signed as promised. Tapping his head, Sun Jiang complains that dealing with people from the departed realm is a hassle, remarking that if it weren't for the immortal master, Heavenly Treasure Tower would never handle such unprofitable business. He informs everyone they can use their spirit talisman to claim a home and receive free grain every month for the first year. Su Changyu asks what must be done if they want to cultivate, instantly drawing Li Fan's attention. Sun Jiang explains that mortals from the land of exile have a much higher concentration of miasma than others, requiring them to first remove the miasma from their bodies if they wish to cultivate. Acknowledging this, Su Changyu asks how it can be removed. Sun Jiang explains there are several methods, starting with the island's body purifying spirit pool, where soaking for a full day and night clears the miasma completely. Unfortunately, the materials required to open the spirit pool are astonishingly expensive. Despite Liulai Island's wealth, the pool only opens once every 3 years. With the last opening occurring a year ago, they will have to wait about 2 more years for it to open again. And competition for spots is fierce, meaning outsiders without a foundation would have no chance. Su Changyu asks about other ways. Sun Jiang mentions the second method is to cultivate the profound yellow heart cleansing incantation. Paired with specific medicine and diet, they can gradually change their constitution over time and eventually clear out the miasma completely. Although this method takes 5 or 6 years, it is stable and requires no special price to be paid, as the items are sold in pharmacies. Dismayed by the mention of 5 or 6 years, Su Changyu asks if there is anything else. Sun Jiang's face darkens as he mentions the third method, becoming a test subject. Su Changyu repeats the explanation to confirm he has heard correctly, and Sun Jiang nods in agreement, stating that certain immortal masters are deeply interested in the miasma contained within a mortal's body. And each year, volunteers are chosen from among the island's residents for the immortal masters to use special techniques to extract the miasma for research purposes. The official explains that while the process only takes a few months to completely drain the miasma, the extraction itself is so excruciatingly painful and agonizing that it leaves a person in a state where they are unable to live yet unable to die, often causing the vast majority of people to lose their sanity long before the miasma is fully removed. When asked if there are any other methods, Sun Jiang replies that supposedly direct mortal descendants of those immortal masters can rely on heavenly materials and earthly treasures to reconstruct their bodies, which would not only free them from the miasma but also improve their cultivation aptitude. However, he clarifies that such methods are far beyond their imagination and are so unattainable that even the island lord of Liulai Island does not receive such treatment. Rubbing his temples, the supervisor adds that this is all the information he possesses, advising that if they truly wish to cultivate, they should think carefully over the coming days. As he leaves with the men in black, he adds that he understands their struggles, knowing they have all come from the land of exile after enduring countless hardships and naturally carry a heart that yearns for the Tao. But he insists the path of immortality is unimaginably difficult, stating that even if one removes all the miasma, very few can sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, before asking why they would seek out trouble when there is nothing wrong with living as mortals. Instead of suffering in pursuit of immortality, he suggests it is better to enjoy life, indulge one's passions, and live in the moment. Hearing this, Su Changyu clenches his fists, unable to accept a single word of the official's advice. Once Sun Jiang departs, the crowd slowly disperses, leaving Li Fan to ask around until he locates the office handling free housing for new residents, where he presents his spirit talisman and is guided to the northern residential district of Liulai Island, where countless houses are packed tightly together, most consisting of just one room, though fortunately, each has a small courtyard enclosed by walls, keeping them from looking too shabby. The guide hands him a key and informs him that his house is in row 6, house number 7. Inside, the room is very simple, containing only a bed, a table, and a few chairs, but Li Fan does not mind. Lying down, he reflects that settling in requires far less trouble than expected, which he credits to the group from the departed realm. Unfortunately, aside from Su Changyu, the group seems mediocre, lacking the heart for the Tao and appearing incapable of achieving anything significant. For now, his immediate priority is to remove the miasma from his body. While spots in the purifying pool are scarce, the countless treasures in his Taehang arc make forcing his way in relatively easy. However, the downside is that doing so would be too conspicuous, and knowing one should not flash their wealth without a foundation or allies on the island, he knows revealing too much too early would only invite prying eyes, forcing him to proceed with caution. But just as he ponders his next move, a knock comes at the door, prompting him to ask who is there, and hearing the visitor identify himself, Li Fan moves toward the door with slow, deliberate steps while drawing a blade from storage. Opening the door quietly, he is greeted by the fat man who immediately barges inside, demanding to know if Li Fan truly belongs to the group from the departed realm, and insisting that he clearly does not, which temporarily startles him. But without giving him a chance to answer, the fat man continues pressing him, asking who he is and why he sneaked onto Liulai Island under a false identity. Li Fan's expression darkens, and his voice drops to a cold tone as he asks how the man discovered the truth. In response, the intruder explains that when everyone fell into the water, he vaguely saw Li Fan suddenly emerge from underwater. He admits that at first he thought it was an illusion, but after reconsidering the situation, he concluded that Li Fan was not with their group when they left the departed realm. Hearing this, Li Fan remarks that the man seems quite astute and sharp-minded. The man grins and boasts that besides himself, not a single one of those idiots noticed a stranger had snuck in. Moving silently, Li Fan steps behind him with his sword ready and asks if he is sure no one else noticed. The fat man scoffs and asks how those fools could compare to a young master like him. Dismissing the boast, Li Fan stabs him from behind, and the man collapses as blood pours from the wound. Li Fan stores his weapon in the Taehang arc, before quickly moving to hide the fat man's body, reflecting on how the truly clueless intruder relied entirely on a bit of cleverness to guess his secret, only to rush over with threats without considering the consequences. As he cleans up the blood, Li Fan marvels at how the dead man didn't even stop to think, forgetting that the people from the departed realm obtained their registration by falsely claiming to be refugees, yet now genuinely believing themselves to be natives. After all, the anonymous immortal and Sun Jiang's associates from the Heavenly Treasure Tower acted cautiously, clearly afraid of being found out, meaning the identity of being immortal from the land of exile is a secret that must be kept. And neither those merchants, nor the group from the departed realm would dare to investigate this with great fanfare. Even if they investigate and find out the deceased came to see him before disappearing, there is no body to be found, meaning that as long as he insists he never saw him, they can do nothing to him. Just as he expected, a few days pass, and aside from Su Changyu asking a single question, the fat man's mysterious disappearance attracts no attention. During this time, Li Fan quietly gathers information about the island, while planning how to reasonably use the treasures from the Taehang arc. Gradually, he forms a general understanding of Liulai Island, learning that the surrounding sea region is called the Kanjian Sea, a vast and boundless expanse with tens of thousands of islands scattered across it, where Liulai Island is located in the south-central part as a medium-sized hub. The island itself was named Liulai Island because the surrounding waters are abundant with a type of delicious, fleshy fish called the Liulai fish. These fish are very popular among mortals, and since certain elixirs refined by immortal masters also use the Liulai pearls that occasionally form inside the fish's bodies, The master presiding over the island must collect a certain number of pearls each year. Going out to sea to catch them is the most popular job for mortals, as they only need to turn over 70% of the catch and can keep the remaining 30% to sell. Though going out to sea requires large boats, and the schools of Leolai fish are unpredictable, meaning finding the fish schools requires a special spirit lure from the island. This lure is only distributed by Leolai Manor when a fleet goes out and is collected upon return. And since private fishing is strictly forbidden with offenders executed immediately, competing for Leolai fish can only be done with permission from the manor. A few days ago, a fleet that went out to sea not only returned with a great haul of fish, but also encountered a shipwreck carrying over a dozen chests of gold, silver, and jewels, making the fleet extremely lucky. Regarding the items salvaged from the shipwreck, the island's rules are the same as for the Leolai fish, allowing sailors to keep 30% while handing the remaining 70% over to the authorities. When this fleet returned to port, half the island erupted in an uproar, drawing even the island's financial supervisor, Steward Kyan, to inspect the goods personally. With the excitement spreading, many people on the island began to pull strings privately, trying to secure a spot for the next sea voyage. This presents a perfect opportunity for Li Fan, who knows that as long as he can set sail by himself, he can launder the treasures from the Taehang Arc by pretending they are from a shipwreck, with the only difficulty being obtaining the qualification to go out to sea alone since too many people want to join the fleet. After some inquiries, he discovers that the island lord has 3 trusted aides: Steward Zhao in charge of personnel, Steward Kyan in charge of finances, and Steward Zhou in charge of security. And although Steward Zhou wants to get involved, Steward Kyan has maintained tight control, only allocating 1 or 2 fleets to him. Remembering how Steward Zhao's attitude on registration day was different from the others, Li Fan, despite not knowing the reason, concludes that he should go and see him. Li Fan arrives at the Heavenly Treasure Tower, knowing he cannot simply demand an audience with Steward Zhao, and thus planning to approach Sun Zhang instead. Yet the moment he speaks to the gatekeeper, he is met with a cold and dismissive glare, as the guard scoffs and asks what status Li Fan thinks he has to meet someone like Elder Sun, demanding if he believes such a figure is someone anyone can see just because they want to, before ordering him to leave immediately. Walking away, he frowns in thought, considering that the Heavenly Treasure Tower is a place of business and questioning why they would drive people away without even seeing them. While finding it strange how confident the men in black were in making the decision without even asking for instructions, as if they already knew who he was. Li Fan considers the possibility that something may have changed with the people from the departed realm, causing Sun Zhang to turn hostile and ignore him. Inquiries soon reveal the truth. In order to remove the miasma from his body as soon as possible, Su Changyu resolutely chose to become a test subject. Before leaving, Su Changyu signed his name on the remaining contract, which completed the 3 agreements and caused the document to completely dissipate, meaning there are no longer any ties between the departed realm and the Heavenly Treasure Tower. This explains why they suddenly turned hostile and deliberately avoided him, though he admits he did not expect Su Changyu to be so decisive. His source mentions that the other migrants advised Su Changyu not to be so hasty, but such words went entirely unheeded. Everyone understood he was desperate to save his terminally ill sister, leaving Li Fan to remain silent. Although Sun Zhang chose to avoid him, the young man decides he will not give up so easily. Believing that since Sun Zhang comforted Su Changyu before, he is at least not a wicked man, Li Fan suspects the elder just did not want to be too involved with mortals from the immortal Forsaken Land. Preferring to deal with people whose backgrounds are somewhat familiar, he returns and comes to the front of the Heavenly Treasure Tower once again. The gatekeeper immediately sneers, asking if he is back looking for death. Li Fan replies that he came to do business, asking if driving guests away is how the Heavenly Treasure Tower operates, causing the surrounding crowd to whisper, which makes the gatekeeper uncomfortable and forces him to head inside to ask for instructions, before returning to guide Li Fan inside. Once they sit down in a guest room, a maid serves him a cup of tea. Li Fan takes a sip, finding it to be good tea. Sun Zhang enters, explaining that Dayu Pale Dragon grows only on the submarine volcanic craters around Dayu Island, with only a dozen or so plants existing, and that with the destruction of the island, the tea has temporarily become a unique rarity. Li Fan replies that he is basking in Elder Sun's light. The merchant tells him the matters of Dayu are finished and there should be no more entanglements between them, asking why Li Fan has sought him out again. Li Fan answers that he is there to discuss a business deal. Sun Zhang is skeptical, but as he looks at his determined eyes, he eventually asks what business he has in mind. Li Fan asks if the Heavenly Treasure Tower is interested in a quota for the seafaring fleet. Sun Zhang admits that every time the fleet goes to sea, the fish and other marine specialties are enough to make a fortune, making it impossible not to be interested. However, he explains that these quotas are firmly controlled by Steward Kyan, and even Steward Zhao can only get 1 or 2 spots, asking what ability a newcomer like Li Fan has to scheme for such things. Li Fan says that if he can see Steward Zhao, he has his own way to persuade him. Sun Jiang glares at him and a strange silence fills the room. Suddenly, a woman in a yellow dress enters the room, stating that letting him see Steward Zhao is not a difficult thing. She adds that if it fails, they could simply chop him up and throw him into the sea to feed the fish. Sun Jiang immediately stands and bows, calling her the shopkeeper. Li Fan also thanks the shopkeeper in advance. She tells him he seems to have some confidence and does not look like he is talking big. Li Fan replies that his word is his bond, and the shopkeeper insists that if it succeeds, the Heavenly Treasure Tower will want a corresponding benefit. He explains that according to the island's rules, 3/10 of the harvest can be kept for oneself, declaring he does not want a single cent of those proceeds, and that half will go to Steward Zhao while the other half goes to the Heavenly Treasure Tower. The shopkeeper finds this strange, asking what Li Fan wants if he is going to such great lengths. Li Fan tells her he only wants the quota to enter the body-purifying spirit pool once every 3 years. At these words, the shopkeeper freezes, before bursting into laughter and mocking him, asking if he still wants to learn the path of immortality at his age. Li Fan sits silently as she continues to laugh. Eventually, she stops and stares, while Li Fan tells her that since he is only seeking eternal life, he will not regret it even if he dies. Hearing this, the shopkeeper stares at him, her smile disappearing as she recognizes his resolve, finally agreeing to the matter. As the meeting concludes, the shopkeeper instructs Li Fan to wait until a date is set, promising to send someone to notify him. Bowing respectfully, Li Fan replies that the matter is now settled. Before departing, he informs them that he resides in house number 7 on the 6th longitudinal outside the city and can be found there. Once Li Fan leaves, Sun Jiang asks about the spot in the body-purifying spirit pool. The shopkeeper responds that although competition for those spots is fierce every year, the Heavenly Treasure Tower has enough influence to secure one. In her view, if Li Fan truly secures a seafaring fleet, the profits brought by the fleet in just 5 years would be enough to cover the cost of a spot, making this business a sure win with no loss. However, she admits that the man's eyes looked quite scary, leaving Sun Jiang completely speechless. On his way back, Li Fan stops by a pharmacy and purchases the profound yellow heart cleansing incantation along with the matching medicinal herbs. Even if everything goes smoothly, it will still be 2 years before the body-purifying spirit pool opens. He decides to cultivate it first to observe the effects, driven by the hope that his own natural talent might purge the miasma from his body independently without needing to wait. For the next few days, he remains at home cultivating while waiting to meet Steward Zhao. However, before he even meets the official, he receives a shocking piece of news. Su Changyu is dead. When his corpse is sent back, it is nothing but a twisted mass of flesh and blood that does not look human at all. It is a truly terrifying sight, with the mangled flesh still twitching inexplicably, making one's scalp tingle with dread. As the people from the departed realm are newcomers who cannot even scrape together enough money to buy a grave plot, they originally planned to bury him at sea. But Li Fan cannot stand to watch this happen, prompting him to offer his own money so that Su Changyu can rest in peace in the earth. Xiao Heng, the prince of Zhenan and heir to the departed realm, cries miserably, but Li Fan does not feel much in particular, merely sighing at the tragedy. In truth, Su Changyu had conducted himself decently with a firm will, and although far from a genius rarely seen in a century, he was definitely no mediocrity. Among the group, Li Fan originally thought he was the most likely to make a name for himself. Yet such a person could not even survive the prerequisite requirement of cultivation, purging miasma, and died so silently. Clearly, the path of immortality is indeed difficult. As he continues cultivating the incantation, Li Fan's understanding of those words becomes increasingly profound, though facts soon prove that he is not a peerless genius either. For nearly a month, he lives in seclusion, cultivating the profound yellow heart cleansing incantation every day. Generally speaking, even those with mediocre aptitude should see obvious effects like improved spirits and faster thinking after cultivating for half a month. Yet even after a month passes, Li Fan surprisingly does not feel any changes. Remaining calm, he simply treats it as a mandatory daily cultivation task. Another half-month passes this way until, finally, the people from the Heavenly Treasure Tower arrive. Following the messenger, he meets Steward Zhao in a courtyard owned by the tower. Greeting him warmly, Li Fan remarks that it has been a long time. Steward Zhao mentions hearing from the people at the tower that Li Fan wants a spot for a seafaring fleet. Observing that Li Fan's appetite is quite big, he asks what kind of backing he has. Replying that a fleet going out to sea seeks nothing but profit, Li Fan asks how the profit from catching liolai fish compares to retrieving treasures directly from sunken ships on the ocean floor. acknowledging that while salvaging treasure is worth several regular fishing trips, one might wonder how they could encounter such opportunities every time. Hearing this, Steward Zhao replies that he has been on this island for over a dozen years, and in his memory, there have only been a few scant times with major harvests. Li Fan confidently states that if he were to command a fleet, he can guarantee that every time they go out to sea, they will bring back a certain amount of treasure. Steward Zhao stares at him silently as his eyes turn red, before finally admitting after a brief pause that Li Fan did not lie. Surprised, Li Fan asks how he figured that out. Steward Zhao reveals that he was born with a pair of unique eyes that can recognize talent and distinguish truth from falsehood, explaining that when Li Fan spoke, there was only a soft white light emitting from his body, proving his words were true and that he harbored no ill intentions. Astounded by the existence of such a unique art, Li Fan mentions that on the day of registration, the steward's attitude toward him seemed slightly different from others, and asks if he saw something at that time. In response, Steward Zhao explains he only saw that Li Fan was extremely wealthy and had quite a bit of blood on his hands, marking him as someone who was obviously not an ordinary person, and admits he was just being polite to form some good karma in passing. Li Fan then asks if the official new Sun Jiang was not speaking the truth about the refugees, to which Steward Zhao replies that it doesn't matter if it is true or false, since they aren't afraid of trouble with an immortal master presiding over the island. Furthermore, because gathering refugees is also the immortal master's order, he would not make things difficult for Sun Jiang as long as he can bring so many to the island. Since Steward Zhao can see that he is not speaking falsely, Li Fan asks if he will now consider the matter of the seafaring spot. Taking a seat, Steward Zhao explains that Li Fan is a newcomer with no foundation, and rashly handing a fleet to him would certainly cause much dissatisfaction. Instead, he proposes that the next time the fleet goes out, Li Fan should go with them, suggesting that if Li Fan really can salvage treasure every time, then in just a few trips, the crew will surely be convinced, allowing him to take over the fleet justifiably. Li Fan acknowledges that the steward is thorough in his thinking. Back at the tower, the shopkeeper is shocked that Li Fan convinced Steward Zhao so easily. Left questioning what backing the man actually has, she is unsure whether he really has the confidence to secure the fleet. To secure his goodwill, she instructs Sun Jiang to send Li Fan the title deed for a vacant courtyard on East Street in the city. Hearing this, Sun Jiang is stunned, reminding her that they spent a fortune to acquire that courtyard to bribe Steward Kyan, asking how they can let him have it so cheaply and suggesting they wait until he helps them secure the fleet first. But the shopkeeper tells him to just go, explaining that if they really wait until then, such a small courtyard will not be enough to befriend him. Sun Jiang sends someone to deliver the title deed into Li Fan's hands, and he chooses not to refuse it. Since he has very little to pack, he moves into the courtyard house on East Street that very same day. Compared to the slums outside the city, the environment of this courtyard is far superior. After settling in, he politely declines the maids that the Heavenly Treasure Tower arranged for him and lives quietly while waiting for the fleet's next departure. He originally thought it would not take long, but an unforeseen event soon pushes the date of departure into the indefinite future. One day, people suddenly run through the streets shouting warnings for everyone to return home quickly because a windstorm is coming, crying out for the immortal master to protect them. Inside his home, Li Fan is still practicing his cultivation when he senses something unusual and immediately rushes outside to see what is happening. Overhead, a protective barrier inscribed with ancient characters appears. A shimmering barrier spreads across the sky to shield the island from the approaching storm and tornadoes. A voice echoes through the air informing everyone that the Island Protection Grand Formation has been activated and instructing them not to panic while staying indoors. All the citizens fall to their knees to bow and thank the immortal master, treating the cultivator like a living god, while Li Fan stares silently at the sky. The flowing blue light of the Grand Formation twists and turns, while the faintly emerging characters look exceptionally profound and mysterious, with the earlier howling wind, which sounded like ghosts wailing, completely shut out by the glowing barrier. Outside is a violent storm, but inside everything remains calm and tranquil, showcasing what it truly means to be an immortal. Suddenly, the sky trembles as purple lightning descends from above and a bolt strikes the barrier. The pressure alone forces Li Fan to his knees while blood spills from his mouth. Could this be the legendary Heavenly Thunder? Clearly, even the aftershock from the collision between the Heavenly Thunder and the Island Protection Grand Formation possesses such overwhelming power. Another tremor shakes him as he looks up, soaked by the pouring rain, watching more of the Heavenly Thunder gather. A rain of purple bolts pours down relentlessly and slams into the barrier with increasing force. As waves become more violent because of the storm, his heart tightens in fear, bringing the sudden dread that this lifetime might end right here. Fortunately, the Island Protection Grand Formation proves far more reliable than expected, holding firm without shattering, despite the relentless assault of winds and lightning. With the passage of time, the giant waves finally begin to calm down, though they only settle slightly. The windstorm comes quickly but leaves slowly, making it hard to distinguish day from night amidst the wind and rain. It feels as if 2 or 3 full days pass before the storm finally recedes. According to reports from the islanders, this tempest was actually on a relatively small scale, with the storm 15 years ago being several times more powerful. At that time, the Island Protection Grand Formation could barely maintain itself and was forced to shrink its protective range, reducing the area of Liulai Island to only 1/3 of its original size. In the dozen years following that catastrophe, Liulai Island gathered refugees from all over, and only then did it slowly recover its vitality. The sheer might of heaven and earth is truly terrifying to witness. A few days after the storm, every household on Liulai Island receives official instructions to inspect the Island Protection Grand Formation for any damage. The method of inspection is simple, requiring Liulai Manor to distribute a spirit talisman to each home so that residents can hang it in their house for a few days and nights to observe if any red light emerges. With the Grand Formation containing 367,800 nodes, the residents must ensure there are no abnormalities in any of them. Under the will of the Immortal Master, and also out of consideration for their own safety, everything on Liulai Island is paused to prioritize the maintenance of the Island Protection Grand Formation. In the past, the Immortal Master would coordinate the maintenance work for the landmass, but with the Spirit Stones maintaining the operation nearly exhausted, he has returned to Wangxian Island to retrieve replacements. The landmass self-inspection counts 360 flashes of the Spirit Talisman as one small cycle, and 360 small cycles as one large cycle, with the absence of red light indicating that the landmass is unharmed. Observing this, Li Fan feels a deep sense of awe at how massive yet incredibly intricate the formation is, finding it impossible to fathom how it was built. 5 days later, the results finally arrive and everyone on the island breathes a sigh of relief as the formation is undamaged. With the return of the Immortal Master, the residents' anxiety vanishes and life gradually returns to normal. In the following months, refugees from other islands arrive from time to seek asylum. These survivors are only a minority, as the vast majority of people on their islands died in the recent windstorm. The Kanjian Sea region is vast and boundless with an unknown number of islands, and only those with special resources would have an immortal master presiding over them. Li Fan does not remain idle during these months, and persists in cultivating the profound yellow heart cleansing incantation every day, eventually beginning to see results. Upon checking his status, he finds that as a mortal whose physiological age is 41 out of 88 and psychological age is 504 out of 1119, both limits have increased, bringing a small but noticeable surge of energy. Another month passes before news finally arrives from Steward Zhao. The windstorm in the Kanjian Sea has completely disappeared and the fleet's next departure is imminent. 3 days later at the Liulai Island Pier, Li Fan stands beside the ship Steward Zhao assigned him to, which is called the Kangyuan. As he steps onto the deck, 2 men ahead of him are sighing heavily. One of them complains that he does not know what kind of madness has seized the island lord to organize an assessment, warning that the fleet with the smallest harvest on this voyage will be deemed unqualified and will have their future sailing qualifications cancelled. His companion sighs, explaining it was all caused by the recent storm, which reportedly shattered the Island Protection Grand Formation of Coral Island to the south and razed the entire landmass to the ground, meaning the supplies that Coral Island needed to submit have now fallen onto Liulai Island's head. While the first man worries about how they will live in the future, his companion reassures him that the situation is temporary as they just need to make up for what was owed. A half-naked man shouts at them for their cowardly appearance and tells them to look on the bright side. He reminds them that first place receives a reward where the share of the harvest is increased from 30% to 50%. This man is Zhang Heabo. One of the crew members calls him boss and tells him to stop dreaming because they have never even completed their fishing quota. Another man agrees, saying this will be their last time going to sea and jokes about becoming unfettered pirates instead. Zhang Heabo only smiles and tells them not to worry because there is a capable person on the ship this time. He introduces Li Fan to the crew and guarantees that with him present, everyone will return fully loaded. Observing him closely, a crew member remarks on how unusually pale and clean Li Fan appears, questioning if he has ever even been to sea. Zhang Heabo immediately scolds the sailor, demanding to know if the men are blind. He declares that they are in the presence of a noble guest and a special talent personally invited by Steward Zhao, explaining that this man will soon take over the ship and ordering the crew to be more respectful. However, the crew erupts in protest against the change. One man shouts that Zhang Heabo has been the captain of the Kangyuan for nearly 10 years, and cannot just give it up. Another man agrees loudly, while a sailor named Liu San insists that his life was saved by the captain, declaring he will be the first to disagree if they try to drive him away. Zhang Heabo only smiles, silently assessing the situation. With his men uniting to reject the idea of Li Fan taking command, some even shout that they should throw him into the sea to feed the fish since it is normal for people to die at sea. Pretending to be helpless, Zhang Heabo tells everyone to calm down. Asserting he understands they think highly of him, he points out that the Kangyuan is Steward Zhao's property and they are merely selling their lives for him. Declaring that since the steward wants to change personnel, he claims to have no choice. Watching the spectacle, Li Fan mentally sneers at the petty trick. Stepping forward with a bold presence to address the crew, he tells the men they clearly do not trust him and seem to believe Steward Zhao has bad eyes. He states firmly that since he already promised the steward he could find valuable bounty every time they set sail, he certainly will not let them down. His certainty startles the crew, leaving them to wonder if he actually possesses real skill, while another crew member points out that Steward Zhao's eyes are incredible and he is basically never wrong. Zhang Heabo's expression darkens as he watches his influence slipping away. Shouting that he does not believe the claim of finding treasure every time, he accuses Li Fan of using connections to snatch his position, asking if he is taken for a fool. Raising his hand, the captain ends the argument since the big words have been spoken. Declaring his desire to see how this ends, he orders the crew to set sail and head out to sea. The Kangyuan moves away from the port, sailing without wind. It relies on a set of micro-spell formations driven by spirit stones rather than manpower, while also being equipped with a spirit lure that issues a guide when traces of Liulai fish are discovered. But the sea is vast, and the range the lure can perceive is limited, requiring the crew to be extremely experienced to find the general range where the fish schools appear. However, when encountering the ravages of a windstorm or the migration of fish schools, all past experience becomes useless, making the search as difficult as looking for a needle in a haystack, and the ship's luck seems particularly poor during this trip. More than half a month passes, and aside from netting some ordinary fish and finding conventional minerals, there are no major harvests. As the crew members wear long faces, Zhang Heabo begins to feel anxious in his heart, especially with the threat of punishment for being in last place this time. Looking up, he recalls that the rule is to return within a month, knowing they have only caught a small amount and that it is quite possible they will have the smallest harvest, leaving him desperately hoping for a turn of events in the next few days. Observing Li Fan finally emerging from the cabin, he asks if he is finally willing to come out. He remarks that if he didn't know Li Fan was still eating every day, he would have thought he died in there. Ignoring the comment, Li Fan demands a small boat, declaring that he has located treasure. Hearing this, Zhang Heabo is stunned, asking in disbelief if he is joking. Li Fan tells them to quickly prepare a small boat for him. He claims to have seen jewelry shining with brilliance under the deep sea, asserting that the treasures are waiting for him to salvage them. He warns that the opportunity is fleeting because the light is becoming dim, and he is about to lose his bearing. Zhang Heabo immediately orders the crew to prepare the boat. Once it is ready, Li Fan boards the vessel, telling the crew they are not allowed to follow. He instructs them to wait for his signal, and when they ask why, he explains that they are too noisy and will interrupt his line of sight. The men are left speechless, watching as he drifts away into the distance. When a crew member asks if Li Fan could have run away by himself, Zhang Heabo dismisses the idea, pointing out that since the sea is vast and he took no rations, there is nowhere to run. 2 hours later, a signal flare lights up the sky, prompting the captain to order the crew to drive the ship over quickly. When they arrive, Li Fan points to the water, declaring that the treasure is right there. Zhang Heabo orders the crew to cast the net into the water. After some time, 16 chests of gold and silver treasures are pulled onto the deck. Zhang Heabo breathes heavily in shock. A crew member shouts that Li Fan didn't brag, having truly allowed everyone to return fully loaded. In that moment, the captain witnesses proof that Li Fan can actually find treasure sunken at the bottom of the sea. Clearly, this kind of ability marks him as an extraordinary person, just as Steward Zhao claimed. Regretting his suspicion, he feels foolish to have assumed such a noble person was there to snatch his tiny fleet. Looking at Li Fan on the small boat, the captain thinks that he must hurry and apologize immediately. As soon as Li Fan boards the ship, Zhang Heabo earnestly approaches to bow and offer a sincere apology. After dismissing him pleasantly, he returns to his room to rest. Having secured the treasures, the Kangyuan stops all fishing activities and immediately turns around to head back to Liulai Island. After all, the harvest is so immense that the entire crew feels unable to relax until they have returned safely to the island. The captain instructs a man named Liu San to slip quietly into the water before they dock to notify Steward Zhao, asking him to personally send people to handle the inventory. Liu San agrees and departs. Zhang Heabo then tells the rest of the crew that if nothing unexpected happens, their harvest should be the largest among the entire fleet. According to the rules, they are entitled to keep 50% of the haul, explaining that if outsiders conduct the counting, they will inevitably deduct or miscalculate, meaning he only feels at ease if their own people do it. The crew shouts in agreement, fearing that losing even a little bit would distress them to death. After waiting for some time, the Kangyuan docks at the shore. When the personnel for the routine inventory attempt to board, they are blocked by Zhang Heabo and the crew members. The workers demand to know the meaning of this, asking why they are not being allowed to take inventory. One worker mocks the ship's draft, claiming it looks like they returned empty-handed and suggesting the captain's time is at an end. A crew member begins to argue, but the captain tells him there is no need. Li Fan observes from a distance, acknowledging that there is clearly a reason Zhang Heabo has remained captain for so long, with only his background and experience limiting him. Soon, Steward Zhao personally arrives with his men. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, 16 chests of jewelry are carried off the ship, causing a massive sensation at the dock. The news of the massive treasure haul spreads like wildfire across all of Liulai Island. Over at the Heavenly Treasure Tower, Sun Jiang rushes into the shopkeeper's room in a total panic. She looks up and asks what has him so flustered. Gasping for breath, he reveals that the Kangyuan has returned with over 10 chests of treasure. The shopkeeper remains calm at first, stating that 10 chests of treasure are nothing to make a fuss about, and explaining that anyone wishing to trade them on the island must still use their channels. Suddenly she pauses and asks if he said the Kangyuan, knowing that is the ship where that man named Li Fan is staying. Sun Jiang confirms this, pointing out that it is no wonder Li Fan was able to persuade the steward, as he was absolutely certain he would find treasure immediately, comparing this ability to their own grand shopkeeper. The shopkeeper immediately orders him to arrange a meal invitation for Li Fan and to send someone to tidy up the tower, while also telling him to deliver the title deed to Li Fan without delay. Alone, she considers whether he possesses the spirit-channeling treasure physique. This legendary physique is as rare as valuable items themselves, allowing one to sense hidden wealth within a certain range. Her older sister, the grand shopkeeper Yin Yuiding, possesses this special constitution. It is precisely because of this heaven-defying ability that her sister was able to build the Heavenly Treasure Tower into a massive chamber of commerce over the past dozen years. The realization that another person with this physique has appeared leaves her completely stunned. Later, at Steward Zhao's manor, the steward expresses his amazement to Li Fan, saying the 16 chests were a huge surprise. Li Fan replies that the harvest was indeed substantial, but admits it will be hard to get this much in the future. Steward Zhao agrees that one cannot have such luck every time, but argues that the harvest is enough to justify him operating a separate fleet, prompting Li Fan to offer his thanks. The steward then mentions hearing that Li Fan is seeking a spot in the body-purifying spirit pool. Li Fan confirms this, stating that even with inexhaustible treasures, a person will eventually turn into a pile of yellow earth after 100 years, declaring that only by seeking immortality and witnessing eternal life is this trip to the world not in vain. Steward Zhao admits that at Li Fan's age, he is inferior to him regarding a heart that yearns for the Tao. He reveals that over 10 years ago, when he was the same age as him now, he once saved an immortal master by a stroke of luck. The immortal master asked if he was willing to follow him to cultivate, but he knew he had long passed the best age for cultivation. Even if he cultivated, he might not achieve anything. Moreover, the older one gets, the more deep-rooted the miasma in the body becomes, and the more painful it is to remove. Now that he is older, he admits to feeling a vague regret, telling him that among the hundreds of thousands of mortals on Liulai Island, those like him are truly the minority. Hearing this, Li Fan replies, "You flatter me," and asks if Steward can help him obtain a spot in the body-purifying spirit pool. But Steward Zhao explains he cannot help with the quota for the pool, as the opening and the spots are decided by the Immortal Master, adding that a year before the pool opens, the Immortal Master demands massive tributes such as 30,000 Liulai pearls to secure a spot. Families collect these to earn contribution points, which determine the quota. However, he tells Li Fan not to worry, because the Heavenly Treasure Tower has branches on every island and has an unrivaled ability to collect materials. Hearing this, Li Fan begins to think about the shopkeeper. When Li Fan returns to his courtyard, Sun Jiang is waiting at his door. He asks if she is looking for him, and since he wants to meet her, he readily agrees, resolutely declining the luxurious Tingyu Tower deed. He follows the guides to meet the shopkeeper. As he steps inside the room, the shopkeeper formally introduces herself as Yin Yuzhen and greets him, while Li Fan introduces himself simply. She laughs and calls him concise, while he replies that there is nothing worth saying for a mortal. Hearing that, she asks if the spirit-channeling treasure physique is also not worth mentioning in his eyes. He is surprised and asks what that is. To which she asks how he found the treasure in the vast sea otherwise, and he replies it was just a feeling in his heart. Yin Yuzhen is annoyed but eventually explains the nature of the physique to him. Hearing this, he asks if her sister also possesses this constitution, promptly bombarding her with questions about how old her sister is, what she looks like, and where she was 20 years ago, leaving the shopkeeper completely bewildered. Yin Yuzhen is momentarily taken aback, jokingly asking if Li Fan could be her and her sister's long-lost father. But she quickly dismisses the joke, nodding that he looks nothing like them, while Li Fan clarifies that he was simply asking out of curiosity. Sighing in understanding, she admits it is natural to be curious about one's own kind. She shares that she and her sister originally came from Yellen Island in the north, where a tragic disaster claimed their parents at a young age, leaving the sisters completely orphaned with only each other to rely on. In her memories, they were forced to beg daily just to survive, never knowing where they would find their next meal. Then, unexpectedly, her sister began to find various valuable things in different places, and their days grew better, until her sister established the Heavenly Treasure Tower single-handedly. Yin Yuzhen remarks that it is a pity she has not seen her sister for several years, prompting Li Fan to ask where she went. She explains that 3 years ago, her sister was chosen by a passing immortal master and taken away. At the beginning, her sister would send people to bring messages saying she was safe, but later, they never heard from her again. Li Fan asks if she was taken away by the immortal master to cultivate immortality. Wishing that were true, she reveals that in the letters her sister sent previously, she used a secret code to explain that her situation was very dangerous, warning that if she stopped contacting her, it meant she had met with misfortune and telling her not to go looking for her. Suspecting that the trouble was invited by her special physique, he listens as Yin Yuzhen clarifies that her sister was just a mortal, and the treasures she could sense were only of value to mortals, meaning that in the eyes of immortal masters, those treasures are no different from scrap metal. She admits that while some immortal masters noticed the physique before, none of them took it seriously, so she does not know why she was taken by that last cultivator. She worries that although her sister likely bodes ill, the foundation she left behind is still there, fearing that the Heavenly Treasure Tower, which her sister worked so hard to build, might be destroyed in her hands. Yin Yuzhen admits she does not have her sister's miraculous ability, and with the business worsening day by day since her disappearance, her misjudgment of a few items led to the loss of a large sum of money, leaving the veterans of the Heavenly Treasure Tower dissatisfied with her, to the point where they want to conspire with outsiders to drive her out and seize her sister's legacy. Fortunately, they still have some apprehension about the sister who was taken by the immortal master, so they have not made a move yet. So, under the pretext of opening up markets, she came from Yellen Island to Liulai Island to lie low for a while. She originally intended to develop there for a few years and accumulate strength before settling accounts with them. However, she did not expect to meet another person with the spirit-channeling treasure physique on the island. Yin Yuzhen tells him that if she has his help, she will definitely be able to regain control of the Heavenly Treasure Tower. Li Fan responds that he is not interested in the affairs of her tower, and that his only wish lies in immortal cultivation. He reminds her that she promised to help him obtain a spot in the body-purifying spirit pool if he secured the fleet, asking if she has gone back on this matter. She smiles and says that they at the Heavenly Treasure Tower always put integrity first and will definitely do what they promised, but, glaring at her, he asks, "But what?" Calling him uncle, she adds that even if he can enter the spirit pool, expelling the miasma from the body is not an easy task, noting that every year barely half of those who enter succeed, and the older the age, the higher the probability of failure. She asks if he is 100% sure he can succeed, warning that everyone only has one chance in their life, and if he fails, she's afraid he will have to say goodbye to immortal cultivation forever. Li Fan answers that even if there is a 50% success rate, it is enough for him to try. However, nodding her tone, she looks back immediately and says, "Exactly." Yin Yuzhen reveals that her sister's last letter was accompanied by an elixir called the dust-leaving pill. According to the letter, as long as one takes this pill, the success probability of expelling the miasma will greatly increase, and if combined with the spirit pool, there is a high possibility of success even at his age. Li Fan asks why she hasn't taken such a miraculous elixir all this time. Yin Yuzhen tells him that not everyone is obsessed with wanting to cultivate immortality like him, declaring that her wish is to do business well and protect the tower her sister left behind. Li Fan nods, acknowledging that everyone has their own aspirations. She asks if this means he agrees, and Li Fan replies that he will go back and consider it, promising an answer in 3 days. She tells him she will await his news as he bids her farewell. After making some inquiries, Li Fan confirms she did not lie about the dust-leaving pill. He meets her again 3 days later and agrees to her request, establishing that before the pool opens, he will help her tower collect a certain amount of treasures, and when the spirit pool opens, she will give him the elixir. To show sincerity, Yin Yuzhen gives him the title deed for Tingyu Tower. Li Fan accepts it and moves into the tower located in the center of Liulai Island. Though situated in a busy market, the residence feels as if it lies deep in the mountains. During the year he lives in Tingyu Tower, he completes 3 of the island's official voyages, each time bringing back several chests of treasure and shocking the whole island, while successfully winning a fleet quota for the Heavenly Treasure Tower. In 1 year, the Heavenly Treasure Tower earns nearly as much as the previous 5 years combined. Li Fan also establishes prestige in the hearts of everyone at the Heavenly Treasure Tower, earning both respect and fear from all who serve him. However, he relentlessly pursues his cultivation. Over the past year, whenever he had free time, he painstakingly practiced the profound yellow heart cleansing incantation until finally a breakthrough leaves him overjoyed. The charge progress of truth returning has accelerated. Before this, the progress relied solely on the natural passage of time, reaching 100% every 20 years, and after slowly rising to the upper limit of 200%, it would increase no further. Having been in the cultivation world for over a year, the progress reached 15%, which is nearly twice as fast as the previous 6 to 7%. Besides the charge progress, his physical age limit has risen to 95, and his psychological age limit to 1210. Time passes quietly in cultivation, until only 1 year remains before the opening of the body-purifying spirit pool, when Yin Yuzhen arrives to inform him that the island has announced the list of materials needed by the immortal masters. The 3 of them, Li Fan, Sun Zhang, and shopkeeper Yin Yuzhen, sit together at a table while reviewing a stack of documents regarding the materials for the spirit pool. Sun Zhang points to the list, observing that the required items are all quite common, with the exception of one called Star Sea Quicksand, which he has never heard of before. He remarks that the key to competing for the spot this time seems to lie entirely with this substance. Looking over the papers, Yin Yuzhen admits that she has never heard of this item either, concluding that they will have to ask someone from the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce for information. Sighing as he describes those merchants as reincarnated hungry ghosts who are greedy beyond measure, Sun Zhang fears that they will have to pay a heavy price for this assistance. Looking at them, Li Fan declares that no matter what, he must obtain the Star Sea Quicksand, because he is determined to get the spirit pool quota. The Wanhua Chamber of Commerce is not a local enterprise from the Kanjian Sea, but originates from an unknown continent tens of thousands of miles away. It is said that their organization is backed by an immortal master, which is how they are able to cross the endless seas to conduct business on this remote Liulai island. Consulting her records, Yin Yuzhen tells Li Fan that they still have a year to prepare. She mentions that a merchant walker from the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce will pass through the Kanjian Sea in 3 months, allowing her to contact him at that time. Raising his finger, Li Fan tells her that they cannot place all their hopes on the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce. With Liulai Island taking in many refugees from all over the Kanjian Sea in the past year, someone might recognize this Star Sea Quicksand, making a thorough inquiry necessary. Furthermore, other factions on the island will likewise be looking for this material, requiring them to monitor those groups closely as well. With the publication of the materials needed for the body-purifying spirit pool, the matter spreads throughout Liulai Island. Even ordinary people who previously did not care about the pool now know that the major factions on the island are searching for something called Star Sea Quicksand. One day, Xiao Heng suddenly comes to visit Tingyu Tower. Sitting across from him, Li Fan asks what business this little brother has with him. Xiao Heng mentions that he heard Li Fan is also looking for Star Sea Quicksand recently. Confirming this is correct, Li Fan points to his advanced age, explaining that the body-purifying spirit pool is his only hope for cultivation. Curious, he then presses Xiao Heng on how he discovered this rare material. According to Xiao Heng, back when the immortal master descended upon Dali, a promise was made to transport a group of people to the cultivation world if they gathered the supplies on his list, which explicitly included Star Sea Quicksand. Narrowing his eyes, Li Fan asks why he has no impression of that. Xiao Heng explains that when the list was announced to the world, the content had already been reduced by a few items. He clarifies that those were reserved quotas distributed to the major noble families of Dali, revealing that the item his Prince of Zhenan Manor was assigned to collect was this very Star Sea Quicksand. Extending his hand, Li Fan tells him to speak and state his conditions. Looking down, Xiao Heng recalls how Li Fan paid to bury Su Changyu, which counts as a favor to him. However, life on Liulai Island is truly too hard to endure, especially for someone lacking great abilities who is currently still living in the slums. Reassuring the young man, Li Fan tells him that he does not need to say more because he understands his difficulties. Emphasizing his determination to get this item, he promises that as long as Xiao Heng provides a clue, he can ask for whatever he requires, pledging his utmost effort to satisfy the demand. Xiao Heng thanks him in advance, revealing that the item is actually not rare. He explains that the immortal master's name for it is simply different from theirs, declaring that the so-called Star Sea Quicksand is actually just meteorite iron from the sky. Repeating the name Star Sea Quicksand, Li Fan processes this revelation and asks if just any meteorite iron will do, or if there are other special requirements. Confirming there are, Xiao Heng slowly explains the specific requirements one by one while they sit at the table. First, the meteorite iron must boast a pristine appearance free of pitting or unevenness. And secondly, the overall weight of a single piece must reach at least 50 jin, details that Li Fan firmly commits to memory. With the details noted, Li Fan then asks Xiao Heng what it is he wants. Xiao Heng asks only for a modest courtyard and an easier job, adding that a few servants to assist him would be enough. Looking at him, Li Fan asks if that is really all the son of the dignified Prince of Zhenan requests. He suggests that Xiao Heng might as well add a bit more, mentioning that he still has some say within the Heavenly Treasure Tower. But Xiao Heng replies that he knows his own capabilities, and that being able to eat and live well without struggling tirelessly is enough to satisfy him. He worries that if he suddenly possessed wealth that made others jealous, it would instead invite disaster. Not insisting further, Li Fan exchanges a few more pleasantries before the young man bids him farewell. As Xiao Heng walks away, Li Fan asks if he has any plans to cultivate, pointing out that after having gone through untold hardships to reach this cultivation world, he can't have made the trip for nothing. Waving his hand, Xiao Heng says they will see, but he admits he really has no interest in immortal cultivation. He confesses that reading the profound yellow heart cleansing incantation makes him feel drowsy immediately. After seeing him off, Li Fan goes straight to the Heavenly Treasure Tower to meet Yin Yuzhen. She is surprised and asks if Star Sea Quicksand is really that simple, to which Li Fan replies that the boy shouldn't be lying, though they still need to verify it. He suggests that when the merchant walker from the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce arrives, they can probe him for the truth. Yin Yuzhen thinks that is a good idea, agreeing that it would be best if they can save a sum of money. Li Fan insists that no matter what, they still need to secretly purchase meteorite iron that meets the requirements. While not many people know about Star Sea Quicksand right now, that might not be the case before long. He suggests that when purchasing, they must mix it with other items to deceive others and confuse the public. Additionally, he tells her they might as well release fake news about Star Sea Quicksand in the market to muddy the waters, perhaps claiming it is actually the stones of the Liulai fish. Looking at him, Yin Yuzhen marvels at his complexity. Previously aware only of his spirit-channeling treasure physique, she never expected him to possess such a foolproof strategy for everything. She then asks him what he did before. Li Fan tells her he just taught people to read. Yin Yuzhen huffs and says she doesn't believe it. Entrusting these matters to her to handle while he goes back to cultivate, Li Fan requests no disturbances unless a special situation arises, adding a final instruction to fulfill the promise made to Xiao Heng as well. Staring at his retreating figure, Yin Yuzhen senses signs of great auspiciousness. Puzzled by how even a small matter like helping Xiao Heng can trigger such a sensation, she questions if her ability to seek good fortune and avoid evil has malfunctioned. While lacking the ability to sense treasures like her sister, she has been able to foresee auspicious and ominous events since she was young. Since meeting Li Fan, every task he has assigned has shown signs of great auspiciousness, a stark contrast to the past when she had never encountered such a major positive sign. Although she doesn't know what kind of achievements he will have in the future, she trusts her intuition and decides to do everything she can to help him. Under her authorization, the Heavenly Treasure Tower begins to operate at full capacity, releasing a large amount of fake news about Star Sea Quicksand. Other factions on the island suspect a trap and choose to wait and watch at first. However, one faction holds the mindset of buying it first even if it is fake so they can sell it again, purchasing items related to the rumors on a large scale. This move forces the other factions to stop sitting still and join the purchasing army, causing prices on Liulai Island to skyrocket as chaos ensues. As the instigator of all this, Li Fan stays quietly in Tingyu Tower cultivating. It isn't until 3 months later that Yin Yuzhen finally contacts the merchant walker. Early that morning, she and Li Fan take a small boat from the tower and travel north for dozens of li to the sea area agreed upon by both parties. Suddenly, a flying arc abruptly appears in the sky, from which a man laughs loudly and calls out to shopkeeper Yin, telling her it has been a long time. The flying arc arrives above them, gradually slowing until it comes to a complete halt on the water's surface. Glancing at Li Fan with a knowing smile, Yin Yuzhen assumes he will be shocked to see a flying vessel for the first time. However, his expression remains entirely unchanged, as if the sight is completely ordinary, leaving her to wonder what kind of past experiences could have made him so composed. The man they came to meet steps off the ark and approaches their small boat, greeting the shopkeeper, who acknowledges that their last meeting was 3 years ago. Remarking that time flies, Merchant Walker Wu turns his attention toward Li Fan to ask about his identity, prompting Yin Yuzhen to explain that he is an elder hired by the Heavenly Treasure Tower. The merchant offers a polite salute and declares that it is a pleasure to meet him, suggesting they begin inspecting the goods immediately, since it might be difficult for them to meet again after this encounter. Growing worried, Yin Yuzhen questions his meaning, wondering if some unforeseen incident has occurred, but the merchant admits he does not know the specific reason either, explaining that he recently received a notification from headquarters, stating that all merchant walkers in the Kanjian Sea must cease all operations and return as soon as possible, adding that if he had not already scheduled this trade with her, he would already be on his way back. He urges them to make haste and not delay the transaction. As the shopkeeper falls into deep thought, she reflects that the Heavenly Treasure Tower has been flourishing on Liulai Island because it is backed by the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce. Worrying about what will happen to the tower's future business now that the chamber is suddenly withdrawing from the Kanjian Sea, and wondering why there was absolutely no reaction from her ability to seek good fortune and avoid evil this time. Suddenly, Merchant Walker Wu calls out, interrupting her thoughts. Apologizing and admitting that her mind wandered, she invites him to see the goods. Entering the ship's cabin, Li Fan leads Merchant Walker Wu past various goods, identifying the items, which include 16 pairs of jade discs, 23 pieces of coral, and 46 luminous pearls. He then points to the next items, stating they are 3 pieces of star sea quicksand, leaving the merchant surprised as he asks to see them. He lifts a massive piece of meteorite iron that weighs at least 50 jin, yet it looks like a toy in his hands. Setting it down, he tells Yin Yuzhen she has great luck this time, highly impressed that she collected such fine items as star sea quicksand. Li Fan and the shopkeeper look at each other, silently confirming that what Xiao Heng said was correct. Extremely satisfied with the goods provided by the Heavenly Treasure Tower this time, and because the two sides will not be able to meet again for a long time. Merchant Walker Wu invites them to be guests on the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce's flying ark, leading them to the warehouse once they have eaten and drunk their fill. There he explains that these are all items bought while visiting various islands in the Kanjian Sea, noting that while some are priceless, he remains unclear about the function of others, having bought them just because they looked peculiar, before offering to let them pick a few items from among them. Delighted by the offer, Yin Yuzhen believes her luck has returned, comparing herself to a rat falling into a jar of rice, while Li Fan, observing her eager look, decides to accompany her even though he views these as mortal treasures of no interest to him. The merchant informs them they only have the time of 1 stick of incense, while the shopkeeper points out a jade bracelet, calling it beautiful, and Li Fan agrees the material isn't bad. He then picks up a blue orb, but after 300 years of cycles, his interest in all mortal treasures has completely faded, believing that as long as an item isn't related to immortal cultivation, he has no reason to care about it. Suddenly, a system panel flashes before him. It has detected a chargeable item, identifying the blue orb as a wondrous item of heaven and earth, called the Kanghai Pearl in its nascent stage, asking if he wishes to charge it. Li Fan is stunned to discover that this wondrous item is still incubating and hasn't fully formed yet. He tells himself not to act too excited and decides to put it back for now. Pretending not to care, he inspects other nearby items without sparing another glance at the pearl, until Merchant Walker Wu announces that time is up, prompting Yin Yuzhen to ask if he is going to pick any items, reminding him that such generosity from a merchant walker is rare and won't come again. Merchant Walker Wu claps a hand on his shoulder and agrees, saying there is no logic in entering a treasure mountain and returning empty-handed, urging Li Fan to go pick some more, to which Li Fan replies that it would be impolite to refuse. As he selects the jade statue and the orb, the merchant walker tells him that he has a good eye, explaining that the ancient tree jade statue was found on a desolate island in the northernmost part of the Kanjian Sea and was worshipped by a primitive tribe for thousands of years, claiming that if a normal person keeps it at home, it will calm the mind and strengthen the body. Li Fan then asks about the other item, to which the merchant walker replies that he bought that one from a fisherman on Liyun Island. Staring at the pearl, Li Fan commits the name of Liyun Island to memory. At this point, both sides conclude the transaction, leaving the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce with a large batch of treasures, while Yin Yuzhen secures a large amount of gold and silver as well as a few treasures. On the way back, Yin Yuzhen still wears a worried expression despite the full harvest, prompting Li Fan to ask if she is worried about the tower's future business. She admits she is, explaining that without the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce, they have lost a crucial sales channel, leaving her to wonder why they would suddenly withdraw. Li Fan tells her that when the cart reaches the mountain, there will be a path through, and there is no need to worry overly much. Arriving at Liulai Island at night, Li Fan immediately returns to Tingyu Tower. Although his original intention for the trip was just to verify if the star sea quicksand was meteorite iron, Unexpectedly acquiring such a treasure comes as a pleasant surprise. Holding up the Kanghai pearl, he inspects it closely, questioning why this tiny bead is named Kanghai and if it truly contains an ocean inside. Suddenly, a loud knock rattles his door. With dawn still hours away, he silently questions who is coming to disturb him at this hour. Drawing a blade, he approaches the door and asks who it is. The person outside calls him Brother Li, saying, "It's me." Hearing the voice, Li Fan recognizes it as Xiao Heng. Opening the door, he sees Xiao Heng panting heavily as though he had run all the way there, prompting Li Fan to tell his little brother to come in and talk. Xiao Heng urgently explains that something bad has happened, reporting that their smuggling from the departed realm into the cultivation world has been leaked, which makes Li Fan ask who leaked the news. Admitting he does not know either, Xiao Heng explains that everyone on the island now knows they are not natives of the cultivation world and arrived by smuggling through the Heavenly Treasure Tower, adding that the Immortal Master is reportedly furious and plans to arrest and kill everyone. Li Fan strokes his beard and smiles as if this development is exactly what he expected. Reassuring Xiao Heng not to worry, he says this isn't a major issue, prompting the younger boy to ask why. Li Fan explains that if the Immortal Master truly wanted them dead, their heads would have been separated from their bodies long ago. Questioning why they were allowed to hear the news and discuss countermeasures, he concludes that the rumors are actually targeting the Heavenly Treasure Tower rather than them. Without explaining too much to Xiao Heng, Li Fan hurriedly heads to the Heavenly Treasure Tower, where Yin Yuzhen confirms she also received the news. Explaining that the island's various forces have realized the fake Star Sea quicksand was their doing, and out of resentment, spread rumors about the tower smuggling mortals. Li Fan suggests that these forces simply want the tower to hand over some Star Sea quicksand, advising that since they already collected enough, they might as well throw out a portion to let them fight like dogs over bones. 3 days later, the Heavenly Treasure Tower arranges a meeting with the various forces on Liulai Island, presenting specific requirements and agreeing to hand over a portion of the Star Sea quicksand in exchange for materials of equal value, leaving the division of the resource up to the families themselves. Finally, she insists they must secure one spot for the Heavenly Treasure Tower in the body-purifying spirit pool. Since this condition is not very harsh, both sides quickly reach a settlement after a brief discussion. After paying the price of several dozen pieces of meteorite iron, the Heavenly Treasure Tower successfully extricates itself from this chaotic vortex. And as Xiao Heng reassures Li Fan that everything is fine, the rumors of smuggling on the island vanish without a trace. Time flies, and the day the spirit pool opens finally arrives, prompting Yin Yuzhen to urge him to take the dust-leaving pill. Holding the purple pill, Li Fan reflects on how long he has waited to finally dispel the miasma from his body and step onto the immortal path. After taking the dust-leaving pill given by Yin Yuzhen, Li Fan enters the central spell formation at the center of Liulai Island under the guidance of special personnel, finding himself surrounded by 12 other candidates who are all teenagers. In an instant, their surroundings shift completely, transporting them from a bustling market to deep, lush green mountains wreathed in mist where mountain ranges rise and fall. Looking up, they find the mountain peak is hidden in thick clouds and mist, nowhere to be seen. The group climbs up the stone stairs for 4 hours without stopping. Li Fan notes that these youths all have impressive physiques, observing that even after climbing for so long, they do not even pant once, while he is already panting heavily, barely managing to keep pace. After another 2 hours, they finally reach the summit where the crowd stands scattered around, making it a bit crowded. This peak is the highest point among the mountains, and as Li Fan looks down, he sees nothing but a vast, white sea of clouds. The wind howls as the sea of clouds rolls, and occasionally mountain tops reveal themselves like islands. Suddenly, a gentle voice asks how they find the scenery. Everyone turns to greet the Liulai Island guardian, the immortal master named He, who smiles gently as the mortals bow before him. One youth marvels at the superb scenery, calling it an immortal holy land, while another admits he has never seen such a wondrous sight as his heart surges with excitement. The immortal master explains that when he first came to Liulai Island, this very peak was the lowest among the mountains, resting far below the sea of clouds. He asks if they know that the mountains and rivers of the world can also grow taller gradually, just like people, prompting a mortal to ask if it is really true that these great mountains and rivers are also living things. The immortal master nods, stating that while some towering peaks seem majestic, their fate has actually ended, leaving them unable to advance another step in their entire existence. Yet others, though currently mere earthen mounds, possess infinite potential, leaving no one to know if they will someday grow into pillars that support the heavens. Pointing to Shaowei Mountain, he notes that it was once unremarkable, yet in just a few decades it has grown to look down upon all the neighboring peaks. In truth, the majority of peaks are like the countless summits trapped beneath this sea of clouds, destined from beginning to end to only serve as foils, silently looking up at the heights above. The immortal master asks if mountains are bound by such fates, then what of people? He tells them they are fortunate today to wash away the body's miasma in the spirit pool, declaring that whether they can step onto the immortal path or find hope for the great Tao of longevity depends entirely on their own destiny. No matter what the future holds, they must give their all today. Having said everything required, he commands them all to proceed. A young man standing next to Li Fan asks where this body-purifying spirit pool is located. The immortal master simply points to the empty air, claiming that it is right there. Hearing this, another young man scoffs, asking if the immortal master is joking. The master merely sighs, casually flicking 2 fingers, and the young man's head flies off his body in a sudden burst of blood. Horrified by the sudden execution, the group screams in absolute shock at the decapitation. Falling to their knees, they beg the immortal master to spare them, crying that they dare not question him. The immortal master explains that having good judgment is another crucial lesson on the path of cultivation, warning them to weigh carefully what can be said and what cannot be said. He warns them not to wait until their body has perished and their Tao has vanished to blame him for not reminding them today. Bowing deeply, Li Fan acknowledges that he has been taught. He walks calmly to the edge of the cliff. Lifting one leg, he raises the other and steps out directly into the open sky. As Li Fan lowers his foot, it lands upon invisible ground suspended in the sky. He simply continues forward, walking calmly through the air. Observing Li Fan's bearing, the immortal finds it excellent, yet he regrets that Li Fan is too old. Suddenly, a blue energy wraps around Li Fan, lifting him up and carrying him away toward another location. Turning to the remaining mortals, the immortal informs them that Li Fan has already entered the spirit pool, explaining that those who enter first receive more spirit liquid. He urges them all to go quickly, and the mortals immediately comply. Moments later, clouds surround Li Fan, rushing him deep into the sea of clouds. The white clouds around him constantly gather toward him, and in an instant they aggregate and condense to form white spirit liquid. Immersed in the spirit liquid, Li Fan does not feel suffocated. Instead, he feels incredibly warm and comfortable, like a fetus cradled inside the mother's body, allowing his mind to relax completely. But immediately after, the warmth turns into scorching heat, and that scorching heat quickly becomes a roasting fire. Magma-like heat flows recklessly and destroys everything inside his body, tearing and drilling into every inch of his nerves. The pain is so unbearable that it makes Li Fan subconsciously want to call out to truth returning. Through the agony, he reflects that 300 years of bitter searching was just for this moment. He declares that no matter what, he will never give up because he wants to cultivate immortality and achieve eternal life. The pain is like knives slicing his soul into 1,000 endless pieces, causing his consciousness to dissipate, yet the sheer obsession in his heart forces him to hold on without activating truth returning. Instinct replaces his self, and the profound yellow heart-cleansing incantation begins to operate at this moment. His consciousness seems to find a backbone, ray condensing and growing strong. Although he is in a state of unconsciousness, he remains firm like a reef by the sea, standing firm despite the wind and waves beating against it. 3 days later, the immortal master remains at the cliff, observing that out of the 12 people who went in, 11 have already emerged, 4 successfully and 7 in failure, leaving only 1 person remaining in the spirit pool. The immortal master contemplates how the older immortal is, the more inseparable the immortal mortal miasma and flesh become. The body-purifying spirit pool forces out this miasma by destroying and then reshaping the physical body through regeneration, inflicting unimaginable pain. To him, it is simply shocking for a person of such an age to last 3 days under the ravaging of the spirit pool, believing that if Li Fan succeeds in purifying his body, reaching the foundation establishment stage will be easy, and perhaps even the golden core stage is possible. Another 3 days pass, and the immortal admits that if he could not still sense Li Fan's stable life aura, he would have rushed in to see what exactly happened. Another 3 days pass. The immortal master notes that this body-purifying spirit pool was created by celestial venerable Donji of the Myriad Immortals Alliance, meaning it shouldn't malfunction, yet he questions if someone can truly stay inside for so long. 9 days have passed and the materials maintaining the spirit pool spell formation are about to run out. He tells himself that if the spell formation stops, it can only be counted as Li Fan's bad luck and has nothing to do with him. But he thinks that with Li Fan's disposition and will, if he succeeds, he will have extraordinary achievements in the future. Deciding to treat this as a gamble, he retrieves resources he secretly saved for himself. Hopping Li Fan does not disappoint him. Another 2 days pass. Finally, Li Fan emerges from the portal. The immortal master laughs and offers his congratulations, calling him little friend as he declares that the shackles are gone and there is hope for eternal life, leaving Li Fan confused as to why the master is so polite and enthusiastic toward him. Laughing awkwardly, the immortal explains that Li Fan stayed inside for a full 11 days, revealing that the formation materials were depleted long ago and that he spent a personal fortune to add more for him. Li Fan is utterly shocked, but he checks his status, discovering his physiological age limit has broken through the 100 mark to reach 120, while his psychological age limit has almost doubled, reaching 2053. He also observes that the profound yellow heart cleansing incantation has transformed into the profound yellow heart refining incantation. Li Fan mentally notes that now is not the time to look closely and decides to study it carefully after returning. He bows and says he will definitely not forget the immortal master's grace and will repay him heavily in the future. The immortal tells him not to say such things and insists that the path of immortality is difficult, so he is just helping where he can. He gives Li Fan a book called The Five Spirits Qi Sensing Method, explaining that after removing the miasma, the goal is to sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and guide qi into the body. He calls the book a summary of previous generations' experience regarding sensing spiritual energy and tells Li Fan to study it well. He also hands Li Fan a dust-leaving talisman, instructing him to carry it before guiding qi into the body, explaining that since Li Fan still lives in the mundane world, the talisman is necessary to temporarily isolate the intrusion of miasma for about 5 years. The immortal adds that after Li Fan breaks through to the qi condensation stage, he can come to the island to find him, promising to take Li Fan to the Myriad Immortals Alliance's station on Wangxian Island. Introducing himself as He Zhenghao, the immortal explains the detailed precautions during the process of guiding qi into the body. After all relevant matters are explained, Li Fan takes his leave and departs. Watching him go, He Zhenghao murmurs that this mountain's potential is exhausted, and it is time to move on to another. The cultivation method he practices is called the sitting mountain art. The core feature of this technique involves sitting on a chosen peak for years to merge his aura with it, allowing his cultivation base to receive feedback and increase every time the mountain grows an inch. He notes that besides benefiting from the mountain's increase, one can also gain benefits from helping others. Like helping Li Fan this time, if Li Fan can break through to the qi condensation stage in the future, he will receive feedback in the unseen world, increasing his own cultivation base. He compares this to when a man attains the Tao, his chickens and dogs ascend to heaven. He notes that how much he puts in determines how much he will harvest later, so he is not stingy about helping promising juniors. After exiting the central spell formation, Li Fan quietly returns to Tingyu Tower without alerting anyone. He immediately tries to run the inexplicably obtained profound yellow heart refining incantation, instantly detecting the stark difference between it and the previous heart cleansing method. While the old heart cleansing incantation required half a shishin to slowly calm the mind, this new technique makes his heart like a clear mirror in an instant, allowing him to feel his spirit strengthening with every passing moment. Puzzled by this sudden evolution, Li Fan considers that since immortal techniques cannot be shared by multiple people, perhaps this heart refining method does not count as a true cultivation art. Just one step away from crossing the threshold into cultivation and happily acquiring a magical technique, he feels a bit floaty, but a few days later, a letter arrives, informing him that Xiao Heng has already guided qi into his body and departed for Wangxian Island. Recalling that Xiao Heng only ever wanted a decent courtyard and a slightly easier job, Li Fan is completely shocked, shouting out in absolute disbelief. Li Fan carefully recalls the words Xiao Heng spoke, as they remain vivid in his memory, questioning how long it has been and how his friend successfully eliminated the miasma in his body and broke through directly to the qi condensation stage. He reads the letter Xiao Heng sent several times before unwillingly accepting the facts. It turns out that after being comforted by Li Fan that day, Xiao Heng returned home but remained anxious and unable to sleep. The moment he closed his eyes, he saw the terrifying scene of the immortal master descending from the sky and slaughtering everyone from the departed realm. To sleep peacefully and, more importantly, to become a cultivator and no longer live in fear every day, he began to earnestly cultivate the profound yellow heart cleansing incantation. Unexpectedly, in less than a month, he eliminated all the miasma in his body on his own, finally getting a good sleep and successfully guiding qi into his body. When he tried to be intimate with a maid at home, a gentle hug nearly caused the maid's death, finally confirming that he was already a cultivator and that immortals and mortals must be eternally separated. After Li Fan left the spirit pool, Xiao Heng met Zhenghao. The immortal master looked incredibly regretful, thinking about how he used all his materials to build good karma with an old man. Zhenghao felt that if he had known, he would have saved those resources for Xiao Heng, whose aptitude was obviously 100 times stronger than that old man. Zhenghao confirmed Xiao Heng was not lying and took him away as they floated off together. In his letter, Xiao Heng calls himself younger brother, saying that all he has today is entirely because of Li Fan's protection. He mentions that hearing Li Fan successfully eliminated the miasma means he will surely break through to the chi condensation stage soon. Xiao writes that he will go ahead and await Li Fan's arrival at Wangxian Island, promising that if Li Fan has any requests, he will not dare refuse even if it means 10,000 deaths. Li Fan questions if this is the legendary person with overflowing natural talent who could break through to the chi condensation stage by stumbling around on his own. But he reflects that so what if his friend has overflowing natural talent? What he relies on are the infinite chances to start over granted by truth returning. With truth returning in hand, he has the confidence to crush any kind of genius. He decides the most urgent thing now is guiding qi into the body, first looking at the 5 spirits qi sensing method given to him by Zhang Hao. The book records that in ancient times there was the theory of spirit roots. At that time, only mortals possessing spirit roots could cultivate, including the common 5 elements spirit roots of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, as well as mutated spirit roots like thunder, wind, and darkness. Spirit roots were a gift from the heavens, and only the lucky ones favored by the heavens could perceive the laws of heaven and earth and possess the qualification to attain the Tao and ascend to immortality. But with so many mortals in the world and so few possessing spirit roots, the vast majority of people can only hope for but never reach immortal cultivation, leaving them to wonder how this is fair. Fortunately, in ancient times, an immortal venerable imparted the Tao, emulating heaven and earth to teach the path of longevity to countless mortals with no hope of seeking immortality. The immortal venerable declared his desire to become an immortal, asking why one should beg the heavens, stating that if the heavens do not grant it, he will take it himself. He proclaimed that obeying the heavens makes one mortal, while defying the heavens makes one an immortal. The book explains the journey of the immortal path is to absorb the spirit of heaven and earth to control its qi, and to borrow the wonders of heaven and earth to build the Tao foundation. Prying into the laws of heaven and earth to refine the golden core, and seizing the essence of heaven and earth to form the nascent soul, while extracting the marrow of heaven and earth to obtain its spirit and sacrificing the soul of heaven and earth to merge the body with the Tao. One must reverse the principles of heaven and earth to prove longevity. Li Fan drops the book, discovering that the cultivation method of this world is completely different from what he envisioned, explaining the strange feeling he has had ever since first contacting the cultivators of this world. He reflects that the heavenly Tao of this world seems to bear a faint but immense malice towards cultivators. Whether it's the law that immortal techniques cannot be cultivated by more than one person, or the strange phenomenon like a broadcast illuminating the sky for thousands of li after a cultivator dies, or that bizarre immortal mortal miasma inside mortals that is extremely harmful to cultivators, all of which implies the same point. He repeats the phrase to reverse the principles of heaven and earth to prove longevity. The content following is the method of 5 spirits qi sensing, stating that if a mortal who has eliminated miasma cannot guide qi into the body, they can nurture their own 5 spirits to forcibly absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth before refining it to break through to the qi condensation stage. The so-called 5 spirits refer to the 5 emotions innate to humans: greed, fear, rage, hatred, and solipsism, which remain hidden within the human heart, inexhaustible and ceaseless. The sensing method uses these 5 spirits as motive force and fuel to cultivate the root of heaven and earth in the Danshan, connecting it with heaven and earth so the cultivator can forcibly suck in spiritual energy and turn it to their own use, with those of excellent aptitude cultivating the root in a single day and night to step onto the immortal path. Even those with absolutely no cultivation aptitude can form their own root of heaven and earth within 10 years at most through day after day grinding effort. Yet just like this, as a full 3 years pass, Li Fan still has not successfully guided qi. The 5 spirits qi sensing needs to use 5 emotions as fuel, but he has a heart like still water because he cultivated the heart-cleansing incantation. His greed, fear, rage, hatred, and solipsism accumulate very little. Having been cooped up at home for a long time, he thinks of moving in the quietude, deciding to go out for a walk. During his walk, someone calls out to him as Elder Li. Turning to see Zhang Heiabo, the captain tells Li Fan it has been a long time since they last met, prompting Li Fan to ask how he has been recently. Zhang Heiabo laughs and says that thanks to Li Fan's blessings, the fleet's profits have been really good these past few years, attracting a large number of young people wanting to join the fleet, raising their treatment and status on the island. But his expression changes as he reveals that he and the brothers of the Kangyuan are preparing to leave Liulai Island. Li Fan is puzzled, asking why the thought of leaving suddenly arose when life is going well. The captain speaks honestly, explaining they have encountered all sorts of strange things while out at sea recently. He explains that during their recent trips, they often caught 1,000 jin of fish with one net, and with 9 out of 10 nets filled this way, it seems as if all the fish on the seafloor are fleeing from a disaster and gathering together. Zhang Heabo explains that he and his brothers have lived on Liulai Island since childhood and understand the hidden reefs well. But recently they found more exposed reefs around the island. While there were water level changes every year in the past, this year's fluctuation seems unusual, leaving the brothers worried. He adds that even more worrying is the complete absence of a single windstorm over the past 3 years, not just around Liulai Island, but across the entire Kanjian Sea, as if windstorms have gone extinct. Zhang Heabo points out that windstorms have never stopped since the day he was born, ranging from over a dozen a year to at least 2 or 3. But now, for 3 whole years, no windstorm has appeared. Some people are clapping and cheering, claiming it is the immortal master's protection, but he and his brothers do not see it that way. Instead, he views it as too abnormal, believing something big is about to happen. Li Fan replies that the island has the protection of the Grand Formation and an immortal master presiding over it. Even if there is a situation, it can presumably be dealt with. He tells the captain that leaving one's native land is not an easy matter and he should think it over again. Zhang Heabo agrees that he is right and says the brothers will consider it again. This interlude passes quickly, and Li Fan continues to concentrate on cultivation. Time flows and another year passes. Yin Yuzhen finally accumulates enough power and returns to Yellen Island in high spirits, taking back her position as grand shopkeeper of the headquarters. Since Yellen Island has just been settled, she must stay there for the next few years to stabilize the situation, sending a letter to report the good news to him. Xiao Heng also frequently sends letters to ask about his recent situation, having improved at godlike speed to reach the mid-stage of qi condensation stage cultivation. Zhang Heabo eventually chooses to leave the Kanjian Sea with some brothers of the Kangyuan. Li Fan ignores the disturbances and patiently cultivates, until one day wisps of spiritual energy slowly flow into his danshan along the root of heaven and earth, spreading to his whole body. In the 7th year of entering the cultivation world, Li Fan finally enters the qi condensation stage. Once he stepped into the qi condensation stage, he experienced earth-shaking changes within himself as spiritual energy surged and circulated within his body, improving his somewhat aged body as silently as moisturizing rain. The wrinkles on his face vanished, and his skin became smooth again, with his constitution greatly strengthened by rejuvenation. The Li Fan of today can already command the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, transforming it into various shapes. After breaking through to the qi condensation stage, his lifespan limit has reached the extreme of 199 years. Recalling how the 5 spirits qi sensing method mentioned that while cultivators live longer than mortals, their lifespans are still heavily suppressed compared to ancient times. Next, Li Fan retrieves the Thousand Mysteries Jade Cosmos Golden chapter from the Taihang arc, noticing that the nascent Soul Realm method currently has 0 cultivators. Now that he has finally stepped into the qi condensation stage, he cannot wait to explore its contents. He infuses his spiritual sense into the jade slip, and in an instant, countless words and images flood into his mind like a roaring tide. The information is forcibly poured into his consciousness, causing his temples to throb with a faint pain. Fortunately, Li Fan's divine sense is much stronger than that of an average qi condensation cultivator, so he adapts to the flow very quickly, finally gaining a general understanding of the technique. The Thousand Mysteries Jade Cosmos Golden chapter is a cultivation method practiced by the ancient Heavenly Mystery sect, which held the belief that heaven, earth, and the myriad things all possess thoughts similar to humans, though difficult to detect through ordinary means. However, much like how killing intent subtly permeates the air when a person thinks of killing, heaven, earth, and the myriad things will also emit faint wisps of qi mechanism from time to time. When heaven emits killing intent, the stars shift and constellations move while the myriad things wither. When earth emits killing intent, the seas turn into mulberry fields and dragons and serpents rise from the land. By capturing and refining these fluctuating qi mechanisms between heaven and earth, a person could return to the origin and reach a realm of resonance and unity with them. Indeed, the Thousand Mysteries Jade Cosmos Golden chapter is specifically a technique for sensing, refining, and utilizing these mechanisms for oneself. Once the technique is mastered, he can not only borrow the killing intent of heaven and earth to injure others, but also calculate and predict the future through the deduction of these qi mechanisms. He wonders how vast the will of heaven and earth is, noting that even a wisp of mechanism is thousands of times greater than the power of an individual cultivator. Li Fan understands that while this cultivation method is very strong, it is also extremely dangerous to practice, as nurturing one's own killing intent and sensing mechanisms from spiritual items means rashly coming into contact with it makes it very easy to be injured by the power itself. Theoretically, if this method is cultivated to the highest realm, one can merge with heaven and earth and incarnate as the Tao. Unfortunately, even though the heavenly mystery sect passed down this legacy for 10,000 years, the highest anyone reached was only the nascent soul realm. But with the help of truth returning, Li Fan is not too worried about the risks of this method, feeling no rush to decide on his main cultivation method just yet. Now that he has successfully guided qi into his body, he decides it is time to see what Wangxian Island looks like. Before long, he meets Zheng Hao again. The immortal master tells Li Fan that he sensed a fluctuation in the spiritual energy within the island, confirming he already knew he had broken through, remarking that although it took a bit long, Li Fan broke through after all. Zheng Hao asks if he came to find him so they can head to Wangxian Island, prompting Li Fan to declare that he has no more concerns with worldly matters and can set off at any time. Zheng Hao suddenly appears near Li Fan and seizes his shoulder. They vanish and reappear high above the mountains. Zheng Hao performs a guide gesture causing streams of light to gather into a blazing sphere in the sky. He commands it to open, and a radiant beam of light shoots upward until it strikes the sun. Li Fan is completely shocked to see the sun itself seemingly crack open to reveal a portal at its core. Zheng Hao tells him it is time to go, and they fly into the light toward the sun. They arrive on the other side of the portal at the Dharma Transmission Square, which is filled with rows of kneeling and bowing statues, built to commemorate the immortal venerable preaching the Tao in ancient times, where an enormous statue of an elderly man towers over the center. Introducing the area, Zheng Hao explains that every station of the Myriad Immortals Alliance has such a square. He warns Li Fan that while flying is not prohibited within Wangxian Island, his altitude must never exceed the statue of the Immortal Venerable. Otherwise, the Myriad Immortals Grand Formation will attack, causing even a nascent soul realm cultivator's body to perish and their Tao to vanish in moments. As they walk, Zheng Hao explains the matters that need attention on Wangxian Island in a low voice, and since it concerns life and death, Li Fan keeps them firmly in mind. Passing through a corridor naturally woven from vines, they arrive in a quiet forest full of greenery, where Li Fan sees a massive, ancient, and plain mirror, with cultivators passing through its surface to unknown destinations and others emerging to leave directly. Zheng Hao explains that this is the Tangshuan mirror of the Myriad Immortals Alliance. He mentions the legend that before the Immortal Venerable preached the Tao, this mirror was just an ordinary object, but when the Venerable taught the Tao, the mirror reflected his Dharma image and gave birth to a wisp of its own will, eventually learning to cultivate like a person and evolving into a heaven and earth spirit treasure. Most alliance affairs are handled by this Tangshuan mirror, but Zheng Hao warns that the fellow holds a grudge very much, so Li Fan must be careful not to speak carelessly in its presence. After that, they fly into the surface and find themselves in a separate space that looks like a void with darkness all around. Zheng Hao addresses the mirror, stating that this person is a newly advanced cultivator here to join the Myriad Immortals Alliance at Wangxian Island. The presence records Li Fan as a Qi condensation initial stage cultivator with medium merit, converted to 50 contribution points. His total is listed as 920 points. Zheng Hao tells Li Fan he is relieved now that he has arrived, explaining that he must return to his guarding duties, while Li Fan offers his thanks. The mirror records Li Fan's divine sense fluctuation and asks for his name. After he provides it, the mirror welcomes him and gives him 20 contribution points for free, explaining that he can use points for spirit stones, methods, and treasures. He can obtain more points by turning in supplies, completing tasks, or trading with others. He can also spend points to post bounties for problems he cannot solve. The mirror informs him that as a new member, he can reside in the Tangshuan mirror for free for 30 days. After 30 days, he will need to pay contribution points to continue residing, with a fee of 10 contribution points every 30 days, though he can also spend points to purchase his own cave abode on Wangxian Island. Li Fan smiles and asks if he cannot survive in the Myriad Immortals Alliance. Can he choose to leave and join the Five Elders Council? Hearing that, the mirror remains silent and does not respond to his question for some time. It then informs Li Fan that those who have joined the Myriad Immortals Alliance are strictly forbidden from joining the Five Elders Council, and vice versa. Any violation results in both sides joining forces to hunt down and execute the offender, causing him to fall into deep thought. He then questions the mirror, stating that he does not recall ever agreeing to join the Myriad Immortals Alliance yet. The Tangshuan mirror responds that once a person enters the mirror and has their divine sense recorded, it is regarded as voluntarily joining the alliance. Next, Li Fan asks if he can leave the Myriad Immortals Alliance later, refuse to join the Five Elders Council, and choose to be a rogue cultivator instead. The mirror confirms this is possible. However, it warns him that if he chooses to leave, all items obtained within the Myriad Immortals Alliance will be forcibly reclaimed, advising him to choose carefully. Afterward, he continues to ask the Tiangshuan mirror questions sentence by sentence, tirelessly. Only after a long time does Li Fan state he has no more questions for now, prompting the mirror to acknowledge this and tell the cultivator that he can call upon it at any time if new questions arise, while also informing him that he can consult the mirror directly through divine sense and that the spatial form of the area can be controlled by his mind. Li Fan attempts to manipulate the space with his divine sense, and the void transforms into a simple and unadorned room. The interior decoration is exactly the same as in the Grand Tutor's manor in the Great Chuan. He considers the Tiangshuan mirror to be an amazing treasure, since the decorations and items in the room are almost exactly like the real ones, making the difference imperceptible. Through his questioning, Li Fan gains a rough understanding of the alliance, cultivation methods, materials, and other items can be exchanged simply by clicking the exchange menu with his divine sense, and even the simplest qi condensation stage cultivation methods cost 1,000 contribution points. When he opens the mission panel again, the available qi condensation initial stage missions only pay 5 or 10 points, proving that cultivating immortality while working like this feels like being a beast of burden. The Tiangshuan mirror informs him that he has a new visual transmission and tells him to check it in time. Li Fan agrees instantly, but wonders how someone is looking for him already when he just entered Wangxian Island. The transmission reveals Xiao Heng, who tells him that he is happy that Big Brother Li has finally come, explaining that previously on Liulai Island, he was indebted to Li Fan's care, and leaving without saying goodbye that day added to his guilt. Xiao Heng continues, explaining that in the current cultivation world, cultivation methods are hard to come by, and newcomers often need 1 or 2 years to accumulate points just for a qi condensation stage method. He reveals that it was like that for him at first, but since he started cultivating, he has frequently encountered fortuitous encounters, adding that a year ago, he broke through to the late stage of qi condensation. And now having reached the peak, he intends to go to the center of the Kanjian Sea, to the Cloud Water Heavenly Palace ruins, to search for wondrous items of heaven and earth and achieve his Dao foundation. Xiao Heng tells him that since wondrous items are hard to find, this trip might take several years, so before leaving, he has left a water attribute cultivation method for Li Fan, advising Big Brother Li to cultivate well and not rashly leave the island before breaking through to the mid-stage of qi condensation, promising that when he returns, he will definitely drink to his heart's content with Li Fan. Li Fan looks at the lesser amplification water art and notices that it currently has 0 cultivators. Although Xiao Heng's current cultivation realm far exceeds his own, the youth still keeps the kindness from back then in his heart, confirming to Li Fan that the boy's character is indeed not bad. Besides the water art, Xiao Heng also gave him a copy of the Supreme Primordial True Scripture fragment. Li Fan recalls Ku Hong once said that by cultivating this technique, one can disperse their cultivation at will without much loss of cultivation base. Li Fan decides to cultivate the lesser amplification water art first, then find an excuse to leave Wangxian Island before switching to the Thousand Mysteries Jade Cosmos Golden chapter, since although the Tiangshuan mirror might not notice a small qi condensation stage cultivator like him, it is always right to be cautious. Taking advantage of the free residence, Li Fan starts cultivating the lesser amplification water art, soon experiencing the benefits of the Tiangshuan mirror, where consuming 10 contribution points allows him to activate the assisted cultivation mode. In this mode, the concentration of spiritual energy inside the mirror increases to several times that of the outside world, comparable to top-tier grotto heavens. Furthermore, the Tiangshuan mirror grants the cultivator a state of spirit enlightenment, where comprehension is significantly increased, and cultivating methods becomes much easier. This super cultivation state almost gives Li Fan the illusion that he is a peerless genius, turning cultivation into sheer enjoyment that leaves him completely immersed. When the time was up, he was abruptly withdrawn from that incredibly smooth state, realizing that the cultivation speed under the assisted mode is more than 30 times faster than his self-cultivation. This deep sense of disparity makes him unable to resist exchanging for another day, but knowing he only has 10 contribution points left, he forcibly holds back. A treasure of that magnitude feels as though it should belong to him. But the thought is quickly dismissed, as the Tiangshuan mirror is the supreme treasure and foundation of the Myriad Immortals Alliance, far beyond what he can currently covet. Earning contribution points is a much more realistic goal for the time being. Li Fan understands now why the mirror opened this assisted cultivation function, since any cultivator who has experienced that super cultivation mode will find it hard to refuse trying it again. Plus, under the premise of spending the same amount of time, saving contribution points to turn on assisted cultivation is faster than the progress of burying one's head in bitter cultivation alone. Clearly, The Myriad Immortals Alliance has the cultivators firmly in the palm of their hand. Contribution points are a must, but compared to doing missions to earn them, exchange is the most time-saving and labor-saving way. If he takes out the wondrous item of heaven and earth from the Taehang Arc, the halting steel fragment, it should exchange for quite a few contribution points, knowing that after truth returning, the halting steel fragment will return, but the cultivation base can be retained. However, he still needs to take a mission to leave Wangxian Island to retrieve the Taehang Arc, worrying that since every inch of Wangxian Island is within the surveillance range of the Tangshuan Mirror, attracting a mighty figure would be troublesome. Even though truth returning can turn reality into void, that requires his consciousness to control it, leaving him to question what would happen if a mighty figure takes action and directly freezes his divine sense. He declares that caution is his first rule of conduct. He looks at the missions and finds one regarding Liulai Island. The Pill Room has issued a commission recruiting people to go to Liulai Island to retrieve at least 20 Liulai pearls, with remuneration determined by the quality and quantity of the pearls, which Li Fan decides couldn't be more suitable for him. To not expose the Taehang Arc, he spends 5 contribution points to buy the smallest storage ring as a cover, spending another point to use the teleportation formation and return to Liulai Island. Arriving at Liulai Manor, he meets Steward Kyan, who is in charge of finances, ordering him to quickly send people to get Liulai pearls for him, to which Steward Kyan agrees. After some time, Steward Kyan reports back to Li Fan, explaining that there are only 23 Liulai pearls left on the island currently, adding that if he needs more, he will have to wait another year or so. Li Fan asks if some accident has happened, and Steward Kyan replies that he does not dare deceive him, explaining that due to overfishing, schools of Liulai fish have become fewer and fewer recently, meaning they have to wait for them to recover naturally before fishing again. Li Fan says he is aware of the matter now. Returning to Tingyu Tower, he releases the Taehang Arc and quickly completes the transfer of the gold, silver, and the halting steel fragment inside it. After doing all this, he returns to the Liulai Island teleportation formation, wanting to return directly to Wangxian Island. Suddenly, Zheng Hao appears behind him, calling him little friend and telling him to please wait.